Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 475. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, alongside Johnny V.
I like numbers divisible by 25.
Well,
475.
tonight you are in business
because we have the 25th anniversary of the USDGC. So this kind of just...
Yeah, you're almost double the age of 25.
Shut your mouth.
So that works as well. And welcome in. And obviously, we know we're catching a few people off guard here a little bit tonight. Coming in an hour early. If you are watching us live, if you're listening to a download, you didn't know any better. But right now, we are an hour early. So welcome in. And we've talked about this kind of at length, that one of our big challenges as the year wears on and as we get into the latter part of the season, our players, usually the winners and or top contenders that we're most likely to be talking to, understandably find that starting a podcast at 10 p.m. or later East Coast time can be a little bit of a challenge. So,
unlike you, it has no problem starting at 10, 11, maybe 12.
Whatever
works.
Not everyone's a night owl like I am. So we're happy to work with Holland Hanley, who's going to be joining us here tonight, and we'll get her insights and thoughts as, of course, we're going to recap the Throw Pink Women's Championship along with the United States Disc Golf Championship. Pretty wild weekend, and I think after leaving here last week and then having to spend like 5 more days with you, I don't know how it's fair that I have to be back.
You are so lucky, again. Terry.
You sure you didn't want to take tonight off?
I'm sure of it, Terry.
Well, good to be here. So, in the meantime, that's what's going on. We did just test with Holland a few minutes ago. I believe she was working on some other, she might have even been on another podcast. So some of you may have already watched some of that action, but we're going to have her join us as soon as she reconnects. And I'm going to send her a message right now. It looks like she got kicked off for a moment. And we'll see if we can get her to reconnect and then join us. And we'll get right into it with her. She's obviously a very busy woman. Plenty of things going on here this weekend. And everyone's geared up for a pretty intense weekend, I'm sure, coming up as we're going to head into the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, where they've already announced that we're going to see a $40,000 first place paycheck for both the FPO and the MPO sides. That's incredible. Another big paycheck on the line. Our friends at Barbasol, put it on your face. They're on board again this year as huge contributors and incredible partners. So with that, it looks like we should be just about ready to go. We're going to let the cat out of the bag. Looks like Holland actually has to let the cat out of the room. Our champion from this weekend's Throw Pink Women's Championship, none other than Holyn Handley.
Woo!
Hey!
Hey, long time no see.
How you doing?
I know. I'm doing good. How are you?
We're good, but we just simply had to travel across the country to get back home via planes, and so our travels are nothing like the travels that are typically for our players, although you're only about 30 minutes or so
from an easy one this week.
Yeah, where you played, but you've had a whirlwind, I'm sure, of other expectations and I don't want to call them assignments, obligations, I've got to assume. What you been up to the last couple days?
I mean, mostly practicing, honestly. I've done a couple other podcasts, but they haven't been too long or anything crazy like that. So I mean, honestly, it's been mostly business as usual. It's just I got a lot more Instagram notifications this week than I normally do.
I can bet. What does that? Well, first of all, if I wasn't clear enough, congratulations, of course. We were able to say that to you in person and got autographs from you and pictures and hugs and all that. So congratulations again. But when someone does reach out, is that overwhelming almost to get that many new followers and or friends or messages that pop up?
Yeah, I didn't even try to go through all of my Instagram DMs. It was way too much. I was doing good to get through text messages. But yeah, I mean, I got off the course and I usually keep my phone on Do Not Disturb, took it off Do Not Disturb, and I was like, I can't even start to go through that right now.
It just shook for an hour is all it did probably after you took it off D&D.
Yeah. I think I'm going to share a great a great idea for everybody. That should be a little piece of content with maybe semi-blurring your phone or something, is as a player like yourself taking it off and then somebody else recording, watching just a million messages come in and just your phone exploding. I think that would actually be something pretty cool that could be done after the end of almost every event. Is anything stuck out at you? Have people come out of the woodwork, or maybe non-disc golf friends that immediately caught wind, or is there been any kind of crazy messaging?
Nothing crazy. I mean, there's a few people this year, just kind of throughout the year, that I've heard from that I hadn't heard from in a while. I think World's got a lot of attention. There's been the occasional, person I haven't talked to since high school who's gotten into disc golf since then, who's reached out. This time around, though, it was a lot of people, from the disc golf community that got me started back in California. A lot of them reached out. Some family members, and then some friends that I still keep in touch with.
So on a scale of 80 to 90%, how much of this do you owe to Terry Miller, who's, who was one of the first people to film you? And
I know,
oh, jeez. Right? I only mentioned because someone on the board jokingly asked as well that you were one of the first people, that Terry came back from after seeing you a few years ago. He's like, wow, I saw this woman named Holyn, and she's going to be good. She's going to be really good, John. And I'm like, I always trust Terry's general takes on players. I do, honestly. Very true.
If I was better with Statmando or someone, I would look up how many days that's been since you and I met each other. Maricopa. Was that going to be going on? Will that be 3 years in January, or will that be 4 already?
I think it'll be 3 because it was 2021 Maricopa.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that leads to the more important point: is 2021. You're winning an A tier over Jennifer. B tier, okay, sorry, over Jennifer Allen and Katrina Allen, clearly of which I had taken note and was out there and filmed the last few holes. You're winning that at the end of at the beginning of 2021. Now we're, moving into the end of 2023, and you have a win of this magnitude. How does that resonate? How does that sit? How does that feel for you?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of wild because honestly, with that B tier, I was just like dying to play. It had been COVID and things had been shut down in California for so long. I was just dying to play. And I thought it was cool that, maybe I'll get to play with Katrina and Jen. And it was just like a shock that I was in the lead after one round, and then kind of a shock that I held on to it the second round. And honestly, it was a little shocking that I was in contention the final round here because I didn't think I would be. But, obviously I've grown a lot as a player since then. And so the kind of feeling of like, coming down the stretch and such it's a little different than your local B tier, we'll say.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said after the fact was that, kind of alluding to what you were just saying now, you hoped you'd wake up and have a solid day, maybe find a podium spot or secure yourself, somewhere there. Kind of, at any point, does it creep into your mind like, oh, wow, I have a chance to actually take the entire thing down? Was that at all in your mind throughout the round as you're putting together a solid championship Sunday?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I knew I was having a good day. Like, I knew I was shooting really well. And I'd kind of like, I always go the night before and I'll kind of look at the leaderboard and see like what's, I'll set kind of a realistic thing to kind of fight for, to kind of push for. Be like, oh, only 5 off the top 10 or 5 off the top 5, like that's possible. And I'll kind of like have that in my head, just to kind of give myself something to compete for. And I looked at that and I was like, back from the lead, and I'm like, the odds that those 4 players are all gonna like, kind of sleep on the last round, really, really low. Like surely 1 or 2 of them is going to do really, really well. I could probably catch 1 of them, if not 2. I felt like that was pretty realistic. So I was thinking just like shoot a good round, and that's probably a reasonable result. And then throughout the round, like when I was tempted to look, I was kind of thinking like either I'm going to look and I'm going to see that I'm in contention, or I'm going to see I'm like, on track for my goal, and I'm going to start to get a little nervous from it because I didn't feel nervous at all. Or I'm going to see that despite shooting really, really well, that I'm not actually moved up the leaderboard very much, and I'm going to be kind of disappointed. And neither of those were things I really wanted to put on myself. So I just kind of like was like, we're just not going to check like until something changes and I feel like there's a reason to check. I'm just not going to check. And then by the time we got through hole 17, like I could tell the energy around me had changed. Like the crowd had been like gradually ramping up, like how loud they were cheering for me. And so like I knew something was up, and like at that point I started to feel the nerves, and I was like, well, I already feel nervous, I might as well check. And that's when I saw that I had 2 strokes.
How does that philosophy, and I appreciate you breaking that down, so how does that philosophy differ from any other tournament? Is that basically the way you go into a final round, or compare that to maybe just a few weeks ago at an MVP or really any other tournament you play?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, because sometimes I'll use checking or not checking scores kind of as a tool to get myself into the headspace that I want. Like if I'm already there and it's not going to like that information's not going to positively impact me, I won't check. But there are times where like, I'm kind of having a slow start, or I'm thinking that like I'm not doing as great as I would want to. Sometimes checking can kind of like kick my butt into gear a little bit. I can look and see, so-and-so is only a couple strokes ahead of me and I've got this much left. Like, let's chase them down. I can kind of use it as a motivational tool. And then there are times where I think I'm playing like way worse than I actually am. And so like checking and seeing like, actually, you didn't move 10 spots down the leaderboard. You're actually only this, or even if I did, it's like, actually, if you can put together, the next 5-6 holes really, really well, this is how you can climb back. So I'll use it to like help refocus. But in that particular instance, I felt like it would have been more of a distraction.
And what is with all of that in mind, what is the kind of agreement you have with your caddy / boyfriend or fiance? Boyfriend?
Boyfriend. Yeah.
Boyfriend. Tyler, right? What's your agreement?
Like he keeps an eye on things. Like he knew since hole 9 what the situation was. And honestly, props to him, because I had no idea how nervous he was.
It's a great actor right there.
Yeah.
Honestly, that would be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about it later, and he was like, honestly, when you're playing like that, I just let you go. Like, I don't say anything. Like, and if he was going to say something, he thought long and hard about whether or not it was a good idea to like make a suggestion or like say
as
anything.
all men should.
Yeah, generally, like he always keeps an eye on it. And then, I kind of decide if I want to see it or not. Because like the whole, like him just telling me something based on his interpretation of the situation, that usually just leaves me like
more questions.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
what does that mean?
Well, you're good here.
Don't worry about it. You're good. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're like, what do you mean I'm good? What? I mean, how good am I?
Yeah. I would honestly like, it's better if he just like doesn't say anything unless he like really, really thinks I need to start taking the situation into consideration. And like, that's usually, there have been very few times this year where that's been the situation. Usually by then I kind of know that like I should probably start checking, whether it's being in contention or trying to push into, the last top 10 or whatever I'm trying to push for. I usually always kind of check around like 16, 17, around there. Basically it's like, if I think I need that information to make decisions, I'll check, or if I need it as motivation, I'll check. Otherwise I just don't check.
And I guess I was thinking too, there's definitely worthwhile situations, even if you're not in contention for a win on a given event, you might be comfortably, we'll say, in third, and you're 3 behind second and you're 3 ahead of fourth. So it's like, maybe pars, just maintain that good space when you only have, we'll say, 2 or 3 holes to go, or whatever the case might be. Like, those are the instances where I think it's, can be so much more useful to know, so you're not unnecessarily running at things when they really can't improve your situation much.
Yeah, or on the flip side of that, you got a buffer and you're not going to catch, maybe you'll catch person ahead of you. It's like, go for it.
Yeah.
Like try to get an eagle, try to get a highlight or something. Because there have definitely been times like that where I'm like, how aggressive, like, do I there's some finishing holes where like eagles are possible, or trying to throw it in is possible, running hard putts is possible. And sometimes I'll lay those up. But if it's like, I'm only 2 back of second and fourth place is like 4 behind me, I may as well just run it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the last maybe thing on scoring there is at some events, and this has evolved throughout the years now, But at some events like this one, there may be an actual physical leaderboard that goes along with the card. Sometimes it's just lead card, sometimes that's chase, sometimes they're not there. Every event is a little bit different, and how that role has kind of grown and shrunk throughout the last couple of years, largely due to everything being on UDisc. But is there a way that you're purposely trying to, as well, like avoid that, physical leaderboard? I mean, usually I think you're in front of it, but
yeah, it's harder to see that when you're on the card than you'd think.
Okay.
Because they're usually behind you and they're facing the other way.
Yep.
So it's actually really hard to see that leaderboard. You kind of have to try.
Okay, good. Because I think about that, and clearly you're not necessarily eagle eyes like searching out for it, but then all of a sudden you catch a glimpse of it and you're like, I didn't want to look, and then I didn't know if that would be a problem or not.
Well,
I mean, if I do catch a glimpse of it, I'm just like, you should be able to handle knowing what the score is. Like you can, decide if you want to actively go check, but like at our level, like you should be able to handle knowing the situation.
And for this event, you didn't really have to worry about that because all the top players were on a whole different card. All you would have seen is your card. So
true.
We would not have seen, which the first. Well, granted, we've only seen this event for a few years, but you're the first player to come off a chase card, first FPO player to come off a chase card in one of these larger events. We'll call major-ish, major adjacent, whatever they want to call this event. It's a super A tier. Just having that statistic under your belt, how does that make you feel?
I mean, that's pretty sweet. I feel like it's been possible a couple of times this year because like the field's getting so good. So I feel like in years past, it's always like, one, maybe two people kind of run away with it. But the fact that like the field's even good enough that we can have 5-6 people in contention. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more chase card champions like in the coming year or so. It's cool. I get to be the first. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason. Someone has to be the first. Nobody better than you. How... do you think, or let me try to phrase this a different way. Think about Holland from 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or whatever you want to look at, versus Holland 1 week ago. 3 years ago, did you think, I'm going to have a huge event win in the next two years or so, versus last week, were you thinking, why don't I have my big win yet? Or like, what were your expectations from when you started just a few years ago to, like I said, before this particular event? Like, did you have the same kind of thought, like, oh, it's coming, or were you kind of like starting to like, no, I should really have one by now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I started, like, I really had no aspirations to tour. I mean, you guys tease me about it all the time. Like when I came on a couple years ago, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to tour. And then like 2 weeks later, I was like, I'm going on tour.
Yeah, you liar. You fooling liar, you.
Hey, things change real quick.
Yeah, because
life comes at you fast.
Yeah, I mean, it was something I didn't even really let myself think about up until, weeks before I quit my job and decided to go on tour. And then at that point, I didn't try to, it was kind of like I knew it would happen if I put the work in, because I knew then like I knew my ceiling was going to be plenty high enough. It was just like putting in the work. That first year on tour the goal was more just like get to a second year on tour. Don't finish well enough that this is like a financially stable like option. And then this year, seeing how many top 5s, top 10s I got, and like knowing kind of skill wise better where I stacked up, I was like, just keep working. It's a matter of time and you'll get it. And then the crazy thing was like, I feel like I had multiple times this year where I played just as well as I played this past weekend, and it just wasn't enough. That's why it was kind of like shocking when I look and I'm leading, because I feel like I've had multiple times where I was able to kind of get into that zone and be playing really, really well, but it was just like 1, 2, 3 shots that really cost it for me. So like, I don't know, I try to not think of it as like, oh, it took so long. But a funny story, actually, before the round starts, the guy who's doing the announcing, he's like asking each of us, because he wants to say where we're from and like a notable win from the year. And he's like, hey, do you have any notable wins that you want me to say? And I was just like, nah, because I hadn't won anything yet. And I was like joking with Missy. I was like, maybe next year.
There you weren't alone. I sat by that by the score or by the caller's podium a little bit, and you weren't the only one to not have a big win under your belt. Trust me. But
what would have been the move is to say 2023 Throw Pink Women's Champion.
Right.
See if he would have caught it.
That
would have been pretty funny.
That would have been
that's poking the disco gods in the eye a little bit.
Yeah, that would have been a little. That would have been funny, but definitely cocky too. So,
that's never.
Yeah.
Ray on our board asks, from the time you lied to us and said you weren't going on tour to now, does this validate your decision to go on tour? Like, do you feel like now 100% this was the right move for me? Did this win change that idea, or a month after going on tour did you think, no, I made the right decision here?
Yeah, I think I validated my decision to go on tour a long time ago. Yeah. I think, I don't know if I can really pinpoint a single time, but like there was never, like, I was looking at it more from like a money standpoint, right? It's like, am I losing money or earning money here on tour? And like, I was in the green at every point last year. Like, I made cash everywhere. I got top 10s. I mean, I think my first event last year at Vegas, I got a top 10. Maybe the thing that like really solidified it was maybe the Worlds finish last year.
Yeah.
Getting like shooting a 10 down at Jones and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I never had a moment where I was like, was this right? It was kind of like I made the choice and then we just full steam ahead. And there was never really a moment where I was like, okay, yeah, we're good. This was the right choice. It was just kind of always right. I don't know.
Because it's so, widely discussed and talked about, where do you place this and how does it feel? Again, as we just said, it technically isn't a major. A lot of people say it feels like it does. I'd obviously love your opinion because you've been playing in so many big events, majors, elite series, and so on and so forth. How does it feel to you? And follow up to that is how are your sponsors treating it?
Well, my sponsors are treating it like a major win. I mean, I talked to Bob on the phone today and he was like, yeah, when you put your bonus in, tell him it was a major.
Nice.
And I kind of knew that was what they were going to say because that's what they told Missy, 2 years ago when she won. So in terms of how everyone around me is treating it, it certainly feels like a major. It was like a little weird, like when I'm standing on the stage with Kyle and like we're getting the trophies and like we kind of did the equivalent thing, him and MPO and myself and FPO, like we did the same thing, 4 rounds at Winthrop, beating a stacked field that had to qualify. I think like our field was really only missing one person due to injury. Like it's as competitive a field as you're going to get. And then to take it down in 4 rounds, like that definitely felt like a major. And yet it's like, he's called a major champion and I'm not. It's like weird, especially when you have us like standing right next to each other and like we're signing autographs next to each other and he's putting like, one time on his signature. And I'm like, technically I'm not really supposed to do that because this wasn't a major. It was just like kind of a weird moment.
You could have done like TPX1X or something.
Yeah, you're still the one-time champion of this event.
Yeah. Some people did ask for like the one time, and I would put like throw pink on it, because like I'm not trying to jinx it.
No. And if anyone ever questions you, pull out the caddy bib and say, listen, it says PDGA Major. I'm just
not go there.
It does.
Yeah,
it does say PDGA Major. You're right.
It does. And the PDGA also took a lot of heat for that. And
it was a simple mistake on the PDGA side because they had the throw pinks versus the USDGC, and I think they just put the same stamp on the other side of them. So
I think they got us the bibs kind of late too because they were handing them out at the tee on day one. They weren't part of the players pack, so.
So you just touched on something that generated a new thought in my idea, believe it or not. As you said, stacked field, and we could have that argument again another day as to, well, we'll have that discussion in a minute about the majors and should it or shouldn't be and what that looks like. But when you did say stacked field needed to qualify, just like the USDGC side. And then everyone there essentially, except for an injured Paige Pierce, dead on there. Mm-hmm. And then you think about...
Yeah, but I say we swapped out Paige Pierce to this event for Ellie Ezra, who throws just as far as Paige.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Maybe
Anyway.
further. Maybe
Yeah.
further.
Yeah.
Maybe further.
Yeah. But obviously, one of the favorites and the now 998 rated 2-time world champ in Kristen. I just now pulled up your stats. Do you know roughly what you are against Kristen in events you guys have both played at against one another? Any idea?
You mean like how many times have I like beat her?
Have you bested her versus how many times she's bested you? Yeah. Any idea?
I think it's 3 times I beat her, and I've tied her once.
You're spot on. You're like an internal stat mando.
I keep track of these things, Terry.
I guess.
I think
damn.
but honestly, it's kind of, I mean, she's the FPO equivalent of Paul Macbeth. I bet you can ask almost every MPO player, how many times have you beat Paul Macbeth? And 90% of them will be like 4 or like 1 or whatever they.
Yeah.
Kristen Tatar is the same thing, I think, with FPO.
I get it. So yes, you are exactly
and
right.
I can tell you when I did it too. Like,
Okay,
I know.
I believe you can then. Yeah, and I just quickly pulled it up just for the sake of this. Yeah, 322 and 1. So obviously 3 times you bested her. This being one of them this weekend, and then you have the 1 tie. Again, using the term, I don't know if validation is quite the right phrase, but oftentimes when someone is or isn't in a field, this time it was Paige was the other most notable. Sometimes those phrases get sent out or get blurted out of, it didn't feel like the same, or it wasn't as gratifying. I mean, you beat, like you said, everyone, including someone who you've only gotten past 2 other times. Does that feel any more rewarding? Does that matter? Especially the fact that you took her down in a playoff?
Yeah, I think it would have felt validating, playoff or no, because to be that many strokes behind her and to come back is wild. Like, that's not really something, if I'm 6 strokes back of almost anyone else, I'm like, yeah, I could do that. But I'm 6 strokes back of Kristen when she's playing pretty well. Like, yeah, I don't really expect that I don't expect her to sleep on the final round. Not to say that she played bad. She still shot 4 down, but yeah, like that. Yeah, definitely, I think does make it a little bit more special.
Okay, and just to be clear, part of this comes up because on an MPO side this weekend, well, at one time we were hanging out with Simon Lizotte. It was Sunday night after everything was said and done, and he said it just still doesn't quite feel like a major with Paul's not in the field, which was just an interesting statement for someone as good as Simon to still say about someone who's, injured. He said it just didn't feel like a major without Paul there. And I thought that was kind of I think that's just a lot of respect that obviously Simon is showing for Paul. And that's kind of what led me to that. Now let's backtrack to another thought you just said a moment ago, which is, there's obviously a lot of chatter and hype on the boards and the conversation about everything you just said with regard to the challenge, the difficulties, the 4 rounds, the qualifying. Is it absurd to think of having a 5th major for FPO and maybe MPO only remains at 4 of them? Or can you see any other reason, or does the USWDGC, could that be a large A tier that still gets bid on, and then this becomes a major instead, assuming they even want it to be? What are your just thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I definitely want to. I mean, I like U.S. Women's as it is. I could see an argument, for making it an A tier for us, but keeping it maybe a major for all of the other divisions. Because U.S. Women's is a really special event, and I don't really want to see it diminished. But yeah, it's just weird that Throw Pinks kind of isn't a major. For all the reasons that we talked about. I don't think it's crazy for us to have a 5th major. Someone told me earlier today, apparently the LPGA has in golf has 5 majors and the PGA only has 4.
That is true.
So if the the support's there and the finances and like we're able to have payouts for them like that, then I'd be fine with us having 5 majors. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird that Throw Pink's not a major.
And to be fair, not to dismiss anyone, Throw Pink has quickly evolved and stepped in and became very big, very quick, just in the last few years. There's clearly not the 25-year history that we have behind, you know, the USDGC. The U.S. Women's has been around for almost as many years, or just as many years. So I don't think there's, you know, I understand why we are where we are. That, I guess the question is, can we change? Can we evolve? And I will personally probably agree with the two of you then in saying, like, I'm good with you guys. If it came that way, that FPO had 5 majors and MPO only had 4, who cares? Like, I personally am. Yeah. I said to somebody else on site that day, I think women have been oppressed in general for enough years that in lots of other ways, that if you get an extra major, not that this makes up for it, but I don't know. Trade that up for 100 years of you guys not being able to vote. I don't know. Like
100. Wow. What a creationist.
I'm just saying.
Well, and on top of that, MPO had 5 majors at one point. Paul swept them the year there was 5 majors. So this isn't unusual for disc golf to have 5 majors in a year. So I don't see
it's just funny. Like, we want to follow so many traditions that golf and some other sports follow, but then we always argue we want our own identity. It's like, so what? Let's blaze our own trail and make some of our own rules. We don't have to do everything just like everyone else does. But
definitely.
I guess we'll see. And let me also say, like, that's up to Sarah Nicholson, right? Partially. That's up to, you know, other powers that be. You know, we can talk all we want. I think we need everyone else to buy in. There seems to be a
lot more that goes on, you know, behind the scenes that's kind of keeping the throw pink where it's at. At least that's the vibe that I got, you know, kind of chatting with people after the tournament finished. But I know, like, there are people who are trying to make it happen and get it turned into a major. So.
Well, I guess that's the next question is, you know, what if, I'll just get silly for a second and say USDGC happens one weekend, but throw pink happened the weekend before or the weekend after. If we want to keep it at Rock Hill, there's just so many logistics. And I think about, you know, probably what you're saying is, what was there, 36 FPO players? Like, that's a pretty small yet stacked field. I guess I'm thinking of logistics this late in the year, sunlight, etc. Yeah. I don't know.
And also personnel, you know, splitting the personnel like that. And I mean, this was all questions that were brought up when we thought we weren't going to get our events during, you know, the lawsuits, and we're going to have to potentially go to alternate sites. And, like, the thing that was discussed there is, like, there's this really nice symbiotic relationship right now with MPO and FPO. And I think both divisions benefit from being in the same location week to week. Like, you know, that's a discussion I feel like it's had all the time is, like, you know, are they going to split off into separate tours at some point? And, you know, maybe they will, but I really don't think now's the time. Because I don't know that there are enough women on tour full time to, like, fill up an entire day, you know, of spots. And then obviously a lot of people come, you know, they take the one weekend, 1 or 2 days off of work to come watch the whole show. And then you're asking them to come, you know, back separate weeks. And then there's the whole matter of how many MPO and FPO players actually tour together. So there's a lot of reasons I think that keeping MPO and FPO together as much as possible is the best way to go for now.
Yeah, I don't see splitting up in the next 5 years because, like you say, we need more FPO regular on-tour players, which means we need more money, and so we can support more FPO players on tour. And then at some point, you know, the FPO division is going to start getting bigger, and the MPO division will probably start shrinking up for a little bit until we can support 2 tours, when at that point then we can make both divisions a good solid, like, 120 players or whatever it is. But I could see the MPO dropping down to, like, 80 players while the FPO expands, and then once you get to that point, it's like we just physically can't cover 2 events in one weekend, live broadcasting or something along those lines. So I think there's a lot of there are definitely a lot of logistics to go through before we do that.
I'm thinking of the logistics I just took a left turn into are how many we'll say competitively playing caddies do we have on the tour right now?
There's quite a few.
Being
there's quite a few.
being your significant other.
Yeah.
Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Is there,
Jamie, Macy's husband.
Jamie, yep.
Owen's husband. He's on and off the tour. I know he kind of.
Justin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, Justin. I'm just thinking there needs to be some kind of battle among them too. So then there's my follow-up. Who wins? Who wins if we take all of the full-time caddies, put them on the 2 or 3 cards that they should be on? There's 8 or 10 of them or 12 of them. Let's just say, who you put money on?
Oh man, that's hard. I haven't actually seen Jamie play, but I have played with Tom and Justin. So I don't really know how Jamie would do. I would think, if we're comparing Tom and Tyler, because I have seen them play against each other, I think Tom's maybe a little bit more consistent off the tee, but Tyler's the better putter.
Oh, okay. And I think I think Jamie's pretty good. I'm not sure, but I think he's pretty good.
I get the feeling he's pretty good too. I know the Gatekeeper was doing like a series of like couple battles.
Yeah.
And they did do one that was, me and Tyler in a doubles match against Missy and Tom. It was on the Open at Austin course. And
okay. So. Yeah. And the board does nail it. Doc Zen is right. Yuli's caddy, Brad Hammock, a world champ. Yeah, I guess if he's in the mix, he's not a significant other, which I didn't clarify, but yes, he is a full-time caddy on tour. So Yuli's caddy, the world champ Brad Hammock would probably have the upper hand in that battle.
Yeah, he'd probably take it down. No problem.
More than likely.
Okay, it should be a series nonetheless, or some kind of challenger exhibition out there. Is there anything? Is there anything in the off season? And I don't know if this weekend's paycheck changes this, but is there anything in the off season that would surprise us if you told us something's either going to happen, or you're going to go do something, or you're not going to do something? Is there anything in your upcoming off season that would surprise us?
I don't think so.
So what are you doing?
Yeah, nothing that I know of that I'm planning right now I think would be shocking. So,
what does it kind of look like now? I don't want your camper's address or anything, but what do you see yourself doing in the off season?
Yeah, I mean, so Tyler's family has a ranch in Oklahoma. That's where we off seasoned last year, and that's probably where we'll spend the bulk of the season, the off season this year. I have a thing I can't announce yet, but that will require going down to Austin for a little bit, doing a pretty cool collaboration, some cool content coming out. Again, I can't announce it yet, but it'll be good. So I'll be spending probably a week or 2 down in Austin, doing that, visiting family, and probably practicing the courses while I'm down there. And then the plan is to put in a course at the ranch, because there's some really cool pieces of land with some good elevation and some woods. So I'll probably be doing that kind of early on in the off season to let my body rest and focus on that. And then I imagine we'll try to go to Florida kind of early, just because there's a little bit better courses there than what you get in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. Just to get some variety, get some sunlight, and get start getting ready for the season. So nothing crazy.
And since you can't say it, Johnny and I are each going to take a quick guess. I'm guessing off-season, special thing you can't announce yet, and this is nothing more than a guess. I'm thinking instructional clinic with one Holland Hanley. You got any ideas, Johnny?
Yeah, funny, I was going to say something because I was speaking with some of the cameramen, and I know they're going down to Austin. I know some of the cameramen for DGPT actually leased a place in Austin over the off-season, and it could have something to do with that. Like, I know the PDGA today just announced like a 70% discount with Pulsea. So I'm wondering if it has something to do with that or some sort of maybe a tie-in. But I think instructional stuff. That's what I'm guessing.
Or she's going to be in Big Brother, Austin, disc golfer style.
Oh, yeah. Reality TV.
I don't know. All right.
Oh, God. No way.
Who would you hate to be stuck with in a house? Who would you hate to be stuck with in a house?
What other golfer?
I'm not trying to start fights here. Today.
Come on.
I'm not trying to
you
start
didn't
fights.
fall for it.
No.
Just
No,
say
no,
Ella.
no.
Just say
I have
Ella.
to play with these people.
I know. I didn't say FPO. I mean, I'm sure there's some. Anyway, all right. You didn't fall for that one. Obviously, as Johnny just referenced, Ella, good friend, and there's been the bet that has been talked about. It looks like per Ella and some posts here on the Instagrams that we're putting up now, a bet has come to fruition. The wager.
Yeah.
Let's talk to everyone about how you guys
I made
arrived.
that video, by the way.
Nice, of course you did.
My editing job.
How did this explain? In case somebody somehow doesn't know what we're talking about, explain what we're referencing here.
Yeah, so actually, almost exactly a year ago, it was after the tour finale last year. We were just like hanging out, and we were talking about what courses did we think we could win on, and all that stuff. And then I think I suggested of like, do you want to make a bet on who gets their first elite event win or better? And she was all for it, and we decided on winner picks the loser's hair color, and then we kind of worked out the finer details. We decided it's got to silver events aren't going to count, just because sometimes they're really competitive, sometimes they're not. So like field mattered, and then we decided throw pink would count because it's going to be as competitive as any elite event or major. So that was the bet. It was any elite event or major or throw pink, kind of an in betweener. And then, she made good on it. We stayed up late Sunday night. Raven Klein helped. Actually, I say Raven Klein helped. Raven Klein did everything.
Okay.
She did literally everything.
Except for filming it for Instagram.
Was she wearing her Easter outfit when she did it? Please tell me she was. That was an awesome outfit.
That outfit was great. Yeah, we got her like this yellow and pink like towel poncho when we were hanging out in Myrtle Beach because she couldn't be there. But no, she was not wearing that. She was wearing gloves and a t-shirt. She was okay spilling some dye on.
Is it really disappointing for you that Ella pulls that off so freaking well? She rocks. Dude,
doesn't she?
She does, and it's like look at this. I'm gonna pause it here real quick. This is badass. Whoops, this is badass right here. She rocks it. Like you could have picked such a worse.
So good.
You should have picked such like a
her,
green or something.
Yeah. Well, I said pink because I won throw pink.
Yeah, I mean it makes it makes a lot of sense.
And then she went and picked out all the stuff from the salon because like I don't know how to dye hair. But between the guys finishing and the show in the distance showcase, she popped over and bought all the stuff. So she picked out the shade of pink. And I think she did a great job. I was perfectly happy with that. Got the bleach and the toner and all the stuff, and just fully committed to it. And I think it gave her powers. Like, hear me out.
Clearly.
Our first practice round Monday, the course at Nevin. I don't remember what the number was last year, but it's hole 11 this year. It's that one where it's like a straight shot through the woods and then kind of slowly drifts to the right, elevated pin with a steep drop off. It's like 375.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
First practice round. She aced that hole.
Oh, that's right. I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, way to go.
Yeah.
If she crushes the field this week, it's your fault.
Yeah.
No, hair, Ellen. She's on the tear.
She's on the
she's coming for you.
Did she ever tell you what color she would make your hair if she got the chance? Like,
I don't think she had one picked out.
She didn't have one picked out.
I don't think she ever.
She had a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah, lack of confidence, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I was very confident that I would win this bet, and then she scared me at Waco.
Yes.
She was like finishing up hole 14, and I was like, all right, you have to accept that your hair is going to be a different color tomorrow. Happy for your friend. And like by the time she had come around, I was like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this. Unfortunately, she didn't close it out, but I think we scared each other enough times during the tournament.
How long will that stay?
Yeah, she's lucky it's the end of the season. I mean, because she could, in theory, probably shave that, in a week or so down relatively close, and it would grow out by February. She'd have, almost the same.
She said that was kind of her plan, but I think she actually really likes the hair, and I think if she wins, she said she's just going to keep dyeing it. So
yeah. Okay.
Why not?
I was gonna say, how long would that stay otherwise? I'm
It's
unfamiliar.
permanent. It's permanent coloring, right?
Yeah,
Well, but I mean,
she did permanent. Yeah.
I mean, so that
just until it grows out, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Until it grows out
months.
and you cut it off. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, a very cool bet that I know was talked about and referenced. Like you said, it got close a number of times back and forth, and to see it come to fruition in the way it did, certainly just another little cherry on top. Now, a couple other things that have been incredible for you in the sense that a few weeks ago, MVP, you had the opportunity for the East Coast Metal Roofing. Yeah, Ching, I think I got that. East Coast Metal Roofing CTP. Of cashing in on that. That was a $4,000 throw?
4,000. Yep.
$4,000 throw. and now you go pick up a $12,500 paycheck?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't too shabby. How does it clearly you're not just in disc golf for the money, but an extra 17 grand in a couple weeks doesn't hurt, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, right before MVP, we had Worlds, which was a nice little payout for third.
Yeah, okay. That too.
And I'll say, yeah, Discraft definitely values finishing well at Worlds. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely made a good little chunk of change here at the end of the year.
And then, like you said, to finish.
Set
Set yourself up for the off season for whatever you're gonna,
Yeah, a throw pink bonus, as you said, if they treat that like a major. What will be? And there's still obviously $40,000 on the line. I mean, we could be, potentially talking in 7 days.
Probably second place is, because we know Ella's got first place at this point. So
I think if you're betting, man, I think you bet on Ella this week.
Damn.
Okay.
So like 20 or 30 or 40,000 additional on the line still this weekend for a podium finish. Is there anything, whether it's influenced by these recent paychecks or not, is there any purchase or splurge or anything that you got your eyes set on for this off season in terms of picking up?
I don't know, man. I'm not that interesting when it comes to spending money. I hate spending money.
No, that's fair.
The only thing we're really planning on is we're probably going to get a dually truck so that we can pull the trailer just a little bit better. But we're gonna sell our 3/4 ton and then get a dually. It's probably not going to cost that.
Okay.
So, no, I don't really have any plans for any big purchases.
So I believe at the beginning of this season, we caught up with you when you were at the big Discraft filming, and all the teammates were there. It was pretty awesome. We got to chat with, I think, Anthony Barella as well. You were a new Discraft team member. Was that a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract?
It was a 1-year contract.
Because she said you wanted to bet on yourself.
Yep.
Catch that in! Catch it in!
I would say that was a pretty damn good bet. So, has there been talks about next year? I mean, was there a renewal already? Did Bob write you a check for the bonus and just, hey, just sign here while you're at it? Just an extension.
Oh man. Yeah, we haven't done a ton of talking contracts, honestly. I know Bob was wanting to focus on getting through Worlds, and they were very busy, with their own end of the year stuff. Agent and I talked. We haven't actually talked since the win this weekend, so I don't know. We'll probably talk, tomorrow about how he thinks that should, change things and how we should kind of strategize. It's nice that I don't have to do all of this by myself.
Yeah, that is great.
But I will say I've been very happy with how Discraft's treated me this year. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say too much because, like I said, we haven't actually negotiated yet. So
okay. I thought that is what we said at the beginning of the season, but I wanted to verify that because I know there was one or two other people that had said that they bet on themselves as well, and I think a lot of good bets this year, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Clearly, this is the time that we have to perform the obligatory podcast duty and have this silly conversation about hole 18. Because otherwise we get blasted and you get blasted because it's not talked about or discussed.
I'm sure she's discussed it on a couple of
I'm
podcasts.
sure you have. That's why I say it's a silly obligatory thing to do. However, it is as light and fluffy as we usually are. That is also part of our job to at least have the discussion about it. I think the easiest way to do this is have you start, if you could, from throwing your tee shot on 18 as to how it unfolded from your own two eyes and ears and your own perspective with regard to the initial tee shot on 18.
Yeah, definitely. So step it up to 18. Honestly, my main thought was to throw it committed. Because in practice, the only times I got a roll down the hill with the sidearm was when it was a little too sharp and a little too short and would kind of catch the steeper part of the hill. So I was trying to throw it flat and hard and kind of scoot it up the hill. I definitely pulled it a couple feet left of where I wanted it to come out. And then I'm watching the flight of this disc. I know exactly how it's going to finish. And I'm thinking if it fades in front of those leaves, it's going to land in. And there's a good chance it'll maybe stay in. And so I'm watching and I see it tickle some leaves and I see it hit dirt. And then based off of what I know of where that OB line is, I'm thinking like, there's a really good chance that hit in. To my eyes, it looked like it hit in, and then rolled into the water. And so I get off the tee pad, make room for Alexis to throw her shot. And then when she comes off, she was the first person I asked about it. I said, do you think mine touched in up there or not? And she pretty confidently was like, yeah, I think that touched in. There was, some discussion as we're walking up, and the marshal even stopped the cart and made sure and asked, both Alexis and Missy directly if they believed that I touched in. And both of them confirmed that they also, from their perspective, thought I touched in. We got up there. The spotter didn't really have a vantage point on it. He didn't come over and try. He kind of pieced out actually. But we were looking at where the disc was in the water and in relation to the line and determined that it did, but it did likely hit, on the line or just inside of the line. And they gave me the lie right there. And that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah, I was standing, I think Terry as well. We were standing more or less right behind or right around that tent. I saw you throw it when it hit the tree and fell. The first thing I did was mouth to somebody did that get in? Because I don't know the line very well. Not like you guys. I never walked up there, but I know it was close. Yeah. And from what I could tell.
And I mean, the line follows inside of the trees, but where those trees end, it does actually jut out towards the water a little bit before continuing. And when I saw the disc in the water, it hadn't got, it was at that part where it juts out. So it kind of in my mind was what I saw off the tee was probably right. There's a very, very good chance that hit in bounds. And obviously we don't get the benefit of looking at video. And there's discussion there of should we be allowed to use video or not? Personally, I wouldn't mind because then I don't have to make the call. The heat and potentially get the heat for it. But, we made the best call that we could at the time. I've had plenty of time to think about it, and talk to people whose opinions I care about and respect about it, and I believe we played it correctly, the best that we could at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my understanding is it took even the people in the booth slow motion replay to see that it was really close, and because I had said when it came in, I'm that could have gone over higher up and then come back down and in. There's no way to tell for sure. I couldn't tell if it fell straight down or kind of came in at an angle after hitting the tree. There's standing there. There is 0% chance that anyone could definitively say if it was in or out. I truly believe that. And as far as the spotter goes, I don't even know if he could tell because he was further up that fairway.
I don't think he could.
And the way the angle of that is,
and you can't see down there.
No, you can't see that. His job, more or less, is to mark where it goes OB if it comes, because 99% of the discs that go OB there hit and roll OB, and so he marks them there. It's it's not really necessarily, and because I've seen a lot of people online saying, well, how come he's not there? How come we don't have another marshal there? And I keep thinking cool, you want one there? You want one on 5? 2 of them on 5 along the road, 1 on 5 standing underneath of the Mando for MPO, 1 on 5 standing at the water by the basket. There's so many places where this exact scenario can happen. And it's just,
Oh yeah.
I've seen for years now people throw a hyzer on hole 5, and you can't tell if it crosses over. You're like, all right, I think it did. And I've seen players, lobby to say they have, and I've seen players to be like, oh, maybe I didn't. I don't know. I think you guys, literally, I was 30 feet from you guys. I think the right decision was made, like for the group.
When I guess maybe the follow up is, as you said, you've had some time to think about it. How do we move forward with, just this in mind, with the idea of lies and marking, because of the fact that we've seen so many differing opinions? What's your opinion for trying to mitigate something of this nature? Do you have, I'll say, a solution?
I have opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, with how brutal Winthrop is with our OB rules, why not just make it a re-tee if you don't stop and bounce on that hole, or make it a drop zone? Because I think we had this problem, I remember, at Music City on hole 17, having that island hole across the water. And it was the same thing. Like, it's possible to cross inbounds and then hit the trees and land short OB. And I think we even had this exact same scenario on the final day on the lead card. And it was the same thing where we were like, well, if you hit these twigs, like, you probably crossed in, and we ended up giving it to her in that scenario as well. I think when it's that subjective, it's not necessarily put a spotter there, because I've seen spotters make the wrong call in situations where it wasn't actually that hard of a call. I think you just make it, if it's an island hole or if you're throwing from out of bounds, you either need to have a hazard or a drop zone or a re-tee.
Yeah, I was
very simple.
Same thing. I was thinking a re-tee, or not a re-tee, a drop zone, maybe right in front of that tree. Like, just bring it back where, so it still penalizes the player somewhat by pulling them back, and move it maybe down into the left of the tree or something, but so you're still in front of the tree, but you are getting penalized 95% of the time for players that go OB. Because you're right, and almost any island or any OB shot, there could be some discussion like this, and we either need to kind of get, for these bigger events, more drop zones, or that's it. That's really the only option, I think, for OB, is if you don't want to put players in this position, you need to have drop zones. So,
yeah, possibly of just where it comes to rest, I think, is being the key element there, as opposed to if it flew over the green or didn't. Just where did it come to rest, and then make the calls from there. Do you or the rest of the group, or at any point, any of your group, throughout the weekend, have any confusion about
the rules?
The rules on any given hole? Because, and you can explain it to our viewers, there's different rules for damn near every different hole out there. So explain, how you go through those.
Yeah, I think for the cards I was on, I was largely playing with players who've played this course before. And so we're at least pretty familiar with the rules, and not a whole lot changed. But I mean, there was an instance on hole 8 where I almost misplayed, because I didn't realize that, like, if you go OB right early on 8, I actually went OB on my second shot because I cut rolled. I threw a sidearm, and I cut rolled into the hazard. It's not OB. And I was like starting to mark my lie, and then someone reminded me, like, oh, hey, that's actually hazard. And then the next day, someone on my card started to make the same mistake, and I saved them from doing a misplay. And I think a lot of the Pro Tour events have done a really good job of, now they color code the different areas. So usually white is OB, yellow is hazard, and then orange is, relief, or like optional relief area. So I think I like that color coding scheme, because I would love to see us use hazard more, just as like an aside.
Sure.
But yeah, there's some really weird spots, and that spot on 8 in particular is really weird that it's hazard and not OB, because the hazard's actually putting you in another fairway. And there was like an instance of the men waiting for us to finish throwing on 16 because someone had thrown into the hazard, and like, that kind of caused a little bit of a backup.
Yeah, I'd heard from someone at the PDGA on day 1 there were 4 misplays during the day from players just not
that we know of.
that we know of, that they I think I think this was day 2 that they had said. So just on day 1, there were 4 misplays from players playing the wrong lie or taking relief when they should have done OB, or OB when they should have done relief, whatever that's the case. So it's the Winthrop course. You truly, it's the one. It's one of I was going to get into this later. It's the one thing that kind of always just has always bothered me about that particular event was just the number of different rules you have on any different hole, and sometimes, like you said, different rules on the same hole. So, but
yeah, and there's some spots, like I liked the change they made on 9 where they made it our drop zone like a throw and not a putt, because it was kind of crazy that we could throw a shot, never get in bounds, and we have a putt.
Sure.
That was kind of crazy. But then, like, so you have that, which I feel like was a pretty well placed and pretty typical compared to the rest of tour. And then you go to 10, where you could have the same scenario of you never crossed in bounds and you get a 40-footer.
Sure.
That one seemed very generous to me. And then you go 2 holes later on hole 12, where if you don't cross it, you could cross in bounds, but it doesn't matter. If you're OB, you're rethrowing. And that one's like brutal compared to the rest of tour. It was just weird that in the span of those 4 holes, you have such vastly different rules.
Yep. I guess one spot I'd go with this then to start to put a button on that whole conversation is there, I want to give you an open floor in the sense that, is there anything that you've seen or heard or read that you would love just to emphatically address or announce, rather than me trying to think of another way somebody else has asked a question? Is there anything where you're like, I read this, or this was, shared with me and it was just dead wrong? Is there anything that you'd love to dispel or clarify about that situation? Or have you said everything you need to say about it?
For 18, I mean, yeah. I really felt like there's not anything else to say. We made our call as the best we could at the situation, well within the rules, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
why'd you go OB again then? That really wrecked everything.
It almost wrecked everything. Well, honestly, I put myself in a weird spot by that tree up there, and I was like, I even disked up to try and like punch it a little bit, and like didn't go by OB by very much, but fortunately, I just want to give y'all a playoff.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for the excitement.
Yeah,
and
I wanted to get the views up for the FPO.
Well, as I'm sure you heard that the FPO concurrent views were higher than the MPO concurrent views because the FPO product was much more exciting than the MPO product this week. I mean, I think if you look, I believe the overall views were still favored the MPO, but when we look at peak concurrent, that's the number. To me, that's more of like an interest rate. Like you're looking at how much interest is there in this right now, and there was more interest in the FPO than there was in the MPO this year.
Yeah, and which I think is awesome, and like you said, that's a new bar that's been set. The reason why I asked if you had anything else is because in one of the million threads and discussions that took place, there was people questioning the integrity of some of your card mates, whether it was Alexis and or Missy, knowing that you're on the same team Discraft with them, so on and so forth. And I love that Missy snapped back, understandably. Sometimes you just
did she?
Yeah, she snapped back.
I don't want to be on Missy's bad side.
No, someone more or less.
No, you don't. She's, both of them. The 2 of them, I was actually joking before the round. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for the level of trash talk that will happen if I mess up. Because they're both savage. But anyway.
No, I just wanted to say that, usually our pros, most of them are far more reserved than we can even be, and we'll just kind of take it and roll with the punches. And I appreciate all that when they do. And Missy snapped back at this gentleman, understandably, and basically said, I'll paraphrase, hey, Jag, quit questioning the integrity of which I play, because if you're doing that, then you don't know me at all. And again, she said it more politely than even that. But I liked it. And she said, I'll just quote her. She said, Chris and I, don't act like you know me, first of all, is what she told him. And then Kristen and I have always enjoyed playing on the same card. Coincidentally, we spoke about this as I congratulated her on yet another performance after the playoff ended. I play the sport with integrity, and I always call it like I see it. I watched the disc the whole way and felt that it crossed before rolling backward OB, and that's how I called it. And and she also had a longer response as well. But it's too bad because I feel like immediately when it happened, the card mates are under scrutiny, the PDGA is under scrutiny, the course itself is then under scrutiny, the throw pink as you know is under scrutiny, DGN/DGPT, like everyone that could possibly get thrown on, you're under scrutiny, like every single person that could possibly. The spotters or lack of spotters, so they think, are under scrutiny. Yeah. Everything gets thrown under it, and it's just kind of frustrating to read because all three of us know what it takes or have an idea of what it takes to have an event of this magnitude unfold.
But like we said, you could say that about, like, I bet you there's one hole on every Pro Tour course or major course where we could have this argument at one point. Every round, probably, there is a decision call made. It's just the way it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's happening on every other card at some point. It's unfortunately because we do self officiate, and you could have discussions about should we self officiate or how great is having marshals versus spotters and all that stuff. But with the reality of the way the rules are right now is like this situation does happen a lot. It's just do I wish I had just thrown in a foot to the right and made it a lot easier? Absolutely.
Of course.
Or a foot to the left even, you know what I
Sure.
mean? If it, because either way, but yeah, I mean, I know all of my card mates have integrity and like, they don't want to be going through this. They don't want me to go through that either. They want the game to be played the way that it's meant to be played. And they're not going to give me, anything. Just the whole idea that like we're teammates and, and all that. It's like they don't really get any benefit as my teammates if I win or lose. Right? It's an individual sport. Like I think, regardless of who our sponsors are, like we all know each other pretty well, and like that really doesn't have anything to do with it.
I think some people think that there may be an anti-Kristen theme out there, or
she's real hard to hate.
Yeah, right.
I will say this, like. Something there's a lot of things I've tried to learn from Kristen this year because I think I just have like it was funny talking to Ellie Ezra at the end of that because she had kind of she shared that she kind of like looked up to me and enjoyed watching me play, and that was really excited. She was on the card for my first big win, and it reminded me of like being on the card at Worlds for Kristen's first big win because that's kind of how I felt. Kristen was one of the women that I was like a huge fan of. Still am, but like was a huge fan of back even when I was an amateur without any aspirations to play. Kristen's someone that I have just the utmost respect and admiration for. And I think the entire FPO field feels similarly. I think she does really wonderful things like raising the bar and kind of saying like, you have to be here if you want to win. Like I'm raising this, and she's kind of challenging and pushing the whole field forward. So like the idea that there's any kind of anti-Kristen sentiment is like, I think she's probably the most liked FPO player.
She is.
Like,
I think there was actually a poll
players.
Last year that proved just that. She's the most liked FPO player we have.
And there's
literally
again,
a poll.
There's a reason. I mean, not just the competition, no offense to Holland, but there's a reason why FPO is doing so well with viewership. A lot of it is Kristen. A lot of it. Just people like watching dominance, and that's what she has done this year. Until Holland put the smackdown on her.
Yeah, that third.
But in general,
how many euros did you just lose now, Kristen?
Sure, as she drives away with silver on one arm and her very nice car going to do her Nike shoots, she's like, "Yes, I'm so sad."
No, she's,
I know, right?
That's right.
The one funny thing, and we'll start to wrap it up. But one of the funny things that you said to me. Just before we kind of did final interviews and wrapped up, because obviously the tie then forced you guys in the playoff, as you had said, man, I really wish I wouldn't have foot faulted the day before where you were penalized. And we talked about the timing of that, but just kind of, again, if somebody wasn't paying attention this weekend, what happened there and your reaction to it all?
Yeah, this was on hole 12. I'd put my second shot pretty close to the sidewalk where it's like a little rocky. Just didn't give myself enough space that I needed for my run up, and my toe kind of like hit the lip of my disc when I planted, and it was Haley King who called me on it. And then Allie Smith who seconded. Allie Smith, who's a good friend of mine actually. And they called me on it, and I was like, oh, dang, all right. And then moved right along. Like it wasn't a big deal. You know, I made my putt that would have been a 4, but with the penalty was a 5, and we just, you know, we moved on. And on the next tee, like the U-Discer was a little confused, and I was like, oh, it's a penalty for a foot fault. And then I was like, good on you guys for calling it. Cause like, we need to call that stuff more often, you know, if there's foot faults and you see it, call it.
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out that I think the biggest takeaway of all that, not of course that you were that you were stroked, is just the fact that your card mates called you. You held no ill will or grudge, and as you just said, you're good with that. If you break the rule or a rule or the rule, that rule or whatever it might be, as we're self-officiated, you just have to deal with it and move on, and just realize even when a good friend or a couple of good friends are calling you on it, it's there's a lot of integrity there.
And earlier in the season, I think it was at Portland.
Yeah,
you called yourself on a penalty overnight or something. Like after the round, you realized you misplay a hole.
Like 20 minutes later. No, what happened?
Oh, wrong score.
Yeah, what happened is like we had kind of a chaotic final hole. And for whatever reason, I think in my head, I was thinking it was a par 4 and I was adding a stroke, and I just said 5. And my card mates, because like I said, chaotic final hole, everybody's was like kind of all over the place. We also had to wait a while before we could even get to the score tent. And then, you know, our U-Discer, he didn't keep track of it. So no one caught it, you know, when I said 5. And then I'm going back and I'm looking at my stats, and I'm kind of going back and reflecting on my round, and I see that it shows a par for that hole. And I was like, I bogeyed that. And, I mean, it was, I was very upset with myself over that. I mean, I texted Jeff Jaqua and I think one other person per whatever sheet they gave us to make sure that they knew. And then that was that. We changed the score. I took my penalty strokes, and I was beating myself up about it. But like, you know, that's what I would hope my competitors would do in a similar scenario. But yeah, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah,
sorry for bringing that up. I'm sorry, Holyn.
And the only reason why I bring it up,
worst finish.
Sorry.
The only reason why I bring that up as well is I feel like, because I and Johnny have played so long, like you make hopefully, if you're gonna make any or all of those mistakes, you do it once. Like, you add up a scorecard wrong. You go, you show up late to a tee time. Whatever the case is,
I have to say it. You leave a scorecard in your pocket at Am Worlds, and then you go home.
And everybody gets a 2-stroke penalty. Like that's what happened to me.
And 2 people missed the cut because of it.
Yeah, and yes, exactly.
Oh no, Terry.
Yeah, I didn't make any friends that day. So that's why I say, like, all of those mistakes, if they happen, hopefully it's just playing from the wrong disc. Did that. We've seen that happen a couple times, whether it's yourself, which we've seen now. Haley's
done it twice.
Haley and
Paige, I think, did it once.
And we've seen Evelina just played from her, or not Evelina, sorry, Henna played from her own wrong disc.
Yep.
And then we've seen some women play from someone else's disc. We've seen them play from their own wrong lie. So hopefully all of those mistakes just happen once, and then everybody learns and you move on. So let's finish on an additional positive note. Congratulations. Who would you like to thank before we let you go here tonight? Sponsors, friends, anyone else as you head into the final big event of the year?
I mean, I'll shout out my sponsors real quick because they're pretty. I think I really do have the best sponsors. But I got Discraft, Squatch, Resistance Discs, Throw Joe's, those 4, big 4. And then, thank you to everyone who's been, following me this whole time. I get so many lovely messages. I can't respond to them all because there's just too many of you, which is such a nice problem to have. But I really do appreciate everybody who comments and sends me kind words every week. It really does mean a lot.
Awesome. And is there the follow-up to that is there anything you're maybe still in the search or the hunt for sponsorship wise, accessories, whatever? Is there anything else? Shoes? I mean, there's
hair dye.
Someone
did to sponsor the hair dye, but he sent it like the following day, and we're like, bro, we're already done.
Okay. But is there any maybe whether it's this off season or otherwise that's like, oh, hey, you own a car dealership? Yeah, I could use a discount on our dually. Whatever. Is there any other things that you feel like you need?
No, I mean, I think we're pretty good right now. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Not this time around.
Maybe we'll know more in a few weeks.
She doesn't need sponsors when she's cashing all those checks, picking up all that money. One shot, $4,000. East Coast.
It was more than one shot. It was a few shots. It was one to win the 4,000, but
I think it was 3 shots maybe total that had to leave it down. So
$1,333 per shot
per throw. That's a pretty good. It's a pretty good rate.
Not too
That's
shabby.
pretty good. I wouldn't mind that.
Well, Holyn, we wish you the best of luck. Again, I know you said Ella feels like a front runner. You obviously are right there and in contention, and we expect to see you up there performing well this weekend at Nevin. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We know it's a busy week leading into the final big event, so we really appreciate all our Smashies. Appreciate you joining us and giving us so much insight here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
As
all right,
always.
everyone. That's Holland Hanley, winner of Throw Pink. Best of luck to you at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship this weekend. And you never know. Maybe a week from now we have to have another conversation. So
that would be fun.
I would love to have another conversation.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good week.
Good night, Holland.
All right, y'all too. Bye.
See ya. Holland Hanley, folks.
Your Throw Pink champion in extra holes. We didn't even talk about the extra holes, really, where they both kind of missed a possible putt on hole 1.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen Tatar, as she was pretty much every round, was down and to the right because she threw a forehand. Holland went past the basket and was up and to the left. Both of them had just an outside the circle putt and were not able to complete it. Then we get to 17, where Holland throws it into the, I would say, the ear canal area of the hole, as they were talking that I think it was Kenny himself that called that the shape of Climo's ear. So
really,
yeah,
he said that.
I believe he did say that. Yes, on the broadcast.
Okay.
But it was that general area. It was kind of near the tree area, and Kristen Tatar just pulled hers far left and went OB and never really had a shot. So it let Holland just lay up for the win on hole 17 playoff. So, man, congratulations to both of them, to be honest. I mean, obviously to Holland for winning, but Kristen Tatar is continuing her phenomenal season by taking second place. We'll move down the leaderboard a little bit. Tie for third between Henna and Evelina, both of which played really, really well. I was really impressed to see how well Evelina was putting and how well Henna was driving. Just amazing, really good weeks for both of them, tied for third. In fifth place was, one Ella Hansen, who we just spoke of. Sixth place was Missy Gannon. Seventh place, Alexis Mondahano. Eighth place, Silva Saarinen. Ninth place, Haley King, and a tie for 10th between Kat Murch and Eliza Midling. That's how it's pronounced. Midling. So,
Ellie Ezra.
Ellie Ezra. Sorry, did I say Ezra?
No, you said Eliza.
Eliza. Oh, I'm sorry. Ellie Ezra, which is funny because I called her Ellie Ezra all weekend, and for some reason, as reading it, it's harder to read it than it is to say it.
It is.
I was around her so much this weekend, and I didn't mess it up. And then as I'm reading it, I mess it up.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think she's almost, other than Holland winning, she's the story. I mean,
certainly.
Holland had a great weekend, but Ellie Ezra she's been building up a little bit here and there, bubbling up since Worlds when she won the distance competition and there was talk of her, but then she didn't really do much at Worlds. And then she comes here and she's on the lead card. And she's eagling hole 18, the first one to ever do it for FPO.
Mm-hmm.
She throws a mile. She putts really well. She probably has a little bit to work on the touch game. And she plays like she's 16, which means all out. It is fun watching her.
All gas, no brakes.
All gas, no brakes. I walked with her card, which not necessarily her card, but the card she was on, 2 different rounds. The end, I tended to walk with the FPO, usually 16, 17, 18. I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of get up close and good view. And I was really excited because the day before I had heard how Eliezra eagled hole 18. And so the very next day, she does whatever, but she's in an awkward position. And I watch her it's hole 18. If you don't know, if you've never been there, it's a lot more sloped than you think. Like just the angle, the slope, the footing, there is almost no good footing on that hole when you land. Everyone's like, you try to aim for the flat spot. There really isn't a flat spot you aim for. No matter where you're standing, you've got some somewhat awkward run up. And my favorite interaction I saw with two of them with Eliezra. The first one was when she was on with Missy Gannon, and Missy was OB off to the left, and Eliezra was kind of was up and to the right. And Missy comes over and asks Ellie, she says, is it you or me? I can't tell if and Ellie's like, I think it's you. And she's like, okay, I wasn't sure if you were going to lay up. And I swear to God, I was standing right there, and Eliezra said, I'm not laying up. Like there was no, like that idea was so foreign to her. Her job, I think in her head, is to get it from A to B, not just in as few shots as possible, but as fast and as hard as she can. So I got such a kick out of that. And the other thing, I was going to mention it with Holyn, but I was standing there at the scoring tent by the media area, which is right where all the players tend to walk. And Ellie is there just kind of running around being 16 with her friends. Holyn walks off the course, and Ellie kind of comes up and is like, wow, I just had 3 double bogeys and a bogey. And she sounded so excited. And I finished under par. Like, it was just that excitement you get when she racked up like 9 birdies that round. And ridiculous. But it was a lot of fun seeing someone like her just be a kid at USDGC, or throw pink, get to experience this big thing and not be overwhelmed in the slightest. Just not a care in the world. And so that's what I enjoyed seeing from Eliezra this particular weekend. Was just everywhere I looked. And it's hard to miss her because she's got the big curly red hair. And so you kind of spot her no matter where she's at. She seemed to be everywhere. Like no matter where you were, she was there doing something at some point. So it was fun.
Yeah, certainly no shortage, as you said, of either excitement and or just taking it all in and making the most of the moments of being out there. And a couple of quick follow-ups to that. I feel like, of course, she was one of the stars of the show throughout the entire weekend when you're looking at all your big storylines. And just that we'll see how things look for her in the next couple of months. Obviously, we start heading into what will be an off season.
Her phone's going to be ringing off the hook.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of who might she align herself when it comes to sponsorships. Obviously, everyone's going to be wanting to talk to her. I know some people already have talked to her while we were at the USDGC Throw Pink this weekend.
We got to communicate with a few different team managers and just people that are on teams, and every one of them was like, yeah, we're trying to talk to her, we're in communication with her, or we've kind of made ourselves known, or however that went. There was, if you name the manufacturer, they made an effort to get some FaceTime with her.
Yeah, as they should. So it'll be really exciting to see.
And right now she throws, I believe she was sponsored by Lone Star for a while. She has a Lone Star patch on her bag, and she throws some Lone Star, but I think she has a little bit of mix in there from what I could see. I tried to peek without touching the bag, because that's a big no-no. I tried to peek in there a little bit and see what was going on. And it looked like she had a couple discs from some other manufacturers, but she did have quite a bit of Lone Star in there. So.
Yeah, and that, depending on what team she was and what the details were with regard to any kind of alignment or allotment with Lone Star, maybe there was some still open bag or mixed bag format to that. And I guess we'll just have to see. We know that she's a mixed bag as of now, but I would bet I would bet some hair dye on it that she will have a sponsor for the 2024 season. So to be determined, but she will have one. So very exciting.
And she might not even tour next year. She's still going to be 17.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how much she can, she's going to be available to play and what she's going to try and get herself to. But a weekend like this is, when you have kind of those breakout moments, whether it's in a distance competition or whether it's just an overall event, yeah, clearly you're putting yourself on the map and you're making sure that your name is out there. The one, I'll say, disadvantage that any manufacturer will notice is that she's not on social media. And
I took a picture and I posted on Instagram of just kind of what I saw of the week, and I tagged a bunch of people, and I couldn't tag her because I don't believe she has an Instagram.
She's on social media. So
good for her.
And that's good for her.
Kind of.
For whatever her privacy, her family, and everyone else, regardless of what drives that motivation to not be on it, that intrinsically I think is great. However, we also all know that a portion, or sometimes a large portion, of your sponsorship can hinge upon the influence in which you can present yourself and the influence that you give out there in the world. So that's something we'll see if that ends up changing or not, or maybe that's of no concern to her, and she's just gonna have to get it done entirely with just her overall play and performances. So we will see, but as you said, Johnny, definitely one of the more exciting stories that came of this weekend. A follow up, and you were exactly right. You said Ellie was the first to
usually
eagle. Ellie was the first to eagle 18. She did that in round 1. Ella closed out her tournament. Ella Hansen, that is, closed out her tournament with the eagle on 18. So as far as we know, and as far as the stats will tell you, for the throw pink, short throw pink history that we've had out at the USDGC, those are the only 2 women to ever take the eagle on hole number 18. They played as a par 5, same tee, same pen.
And Ellie Ezra had another opportunity. She missed like a 15-footer or 15 to 20-footer-ish for the eagle and ended up just having to settle for the birdie.
Yeah, so on a hole where you're seeing 7s, 8s, 9s, and everything else, to see a couple of women take the eagle 3 is obviously impressive. So Ella Hansen round 4 along with Ellie in round 1.
Speaking of taking a 7 on hole 18,
what?
USDGC, our winner, Kyle Klein, ends up shooting 27 under par, taking a 7 on the final hole.
Goes 4 up in the last 3 holes to still win.
Oof. Yeah. But he crushed the front 9. Front 11, I guess you could look at it, and really gave himself just enough lead where he just had to coast, so to speak, in from hole 11. It was not exciting. It was, it's probably exciting if you're a big fan of Kyle. We were actually wondering, some of the media team, I was rolling around with them for a while, and we were saying, okay, he's got, at one point, a 9-stroke lead. He had a 9-stroke lead, and we're thinking, the only way this gets exciting is if he really starts to rack them up. Like 9 strokes is almost, it's to me, if it's almost a gray area where it's like, all right, you win. At that point, I want to see how much you win by. Yeah. I want to see him get to 12 or 13. Like really, because I'm sure Stat Mando could probably let us know. I don't know what the biggest margin of victory it was in MPO for USDGC.
I think it was Kenny, like year 1 or 2 by like 10 or 12,
10 or 12,
15 or 20 or something like that.
Something like that.
I didn't see the stats because I wasn't in the booth, but I think it was pretty substantial.
Okay. So anyway, Kyle was able to kind of get in hole 18. He just, I think he was sweating a little bit. He had a rough final hole where he threw a shot that kind of burned out and went OB. Then his up shot went OB up to the right. I'm standing up on the top watching on the giant screen that's right by the spectator area, which is about 12 to 15 seconds behind what's actually happening. So we'd hear cheers and groans, wait to watch it on the screen because they were down, and it was a little bit hectic, and I didn't really want to try to push my way in to see anything, so I thought that would be a good way until Kyle got up to the top. So he went OB, then he went OB. And at that point, Zoe and I, who are standing next to each other, were like trying to count on our fingers, like, well, how many does he have to give? And my only thought was, he could then, after the second throw, he could putter his way back, basically up, and still win. The one thing he couldn't do was throw OB again. That would have risked it. And thankfully, he didn't. And he was able to close it out by, ultimately was a single stroke over Bradley Williams. Bradley, who had just a really good 7 under You know, nothing phenomenal, but just slow and steady as Bradley was mostly all weekend. And at one point, I think Bradley even laid up a shot on, I think it was maybe hole 10 in order to just play safe. Because at that point, you can't imagine you're going to make up 9 strokes in 9 holes on Kyle Klein, who has performed very well at USDGC in the past. 2 years ago, went to a playoff with Paul. This year, no playoff needed. Left that Yelp review. No thanks, didn't like, going away from it. Third place was Isaac Robinson, shooting 23 under par. Simon Lizotte tied with him at 23 under. Fifth place, Calvin Heimberg, who shot an 8 under par that round. And Joel Freeman, who was in the lead, I believe, going into that final round. I'm sorry, going into the third round. Yeah. The final round, Kyle had a 3-stroke lead. So Joel Freeman went into the third round with, I believe, a 3-stroke lead, maybe even. And he ended up tied for 5th with Calvin. Tied for 7th was Nicholas Antala and Aaron Gossage. Tied for 9th was Eagle and Chris Clemens, who was, as you guys know, was my dark horse pick. Still performed well. I think he had one kind of bad round, and the rest he really made up. I think it was his first round, which he shot poorly, and then he ended up shooting the hot score to jump back up. So that was your top 10, ending at Chris Clemens. The scores this year, not as good as the scores last year with Gannon and Nicholas.
Yeah, and I'm
pushing each other, and I don't know if that's, and we had good weather, other than a little wind in some of the afternoons. Overall, it was pretty good weather, so the course played the same. There really wasn't much difference there. Just a few strokes worse than last year. And granted, as we know, Kyle probably, if pushed, probably could have got to those same scores as Gannon and Antala did last year, but he didn't need to. He was able to roll in. He was pretty overwhelmed, as you probably one would be when you win a major. You could see it in his face after he won. And even later that night, we got a chance to hang out with him. And I don't even know if he had taken it all in at that point yet either. He was pretty jacked up, though. I was watching him hit golf balls and just hammer them and crush them. Was a lot of fun.
And for the most part, and Ed is on our board saying Kyle showed no excitement or emotion after today. He did.
Yeah.
He's not a...
He did show
over the top, and I agree. He did show some, but it
was almost disbelief.
The type that he just shows even his most excited emotion, I think, is going to be more subdued than most. That's just kind of his style overall.
The way he hugged his family, the long embraces, the hands on the head with his hat, like just over his mouth. I believe it was more disbelief of finally closing it out.
Yeah.
And realizing what he had done. So I don't believe there was no...
Yeah, but you didn't get a roar or a run around the 18th, and you didn't get high fives, around a semicircle of spectators. No, you didn't get those types of things. But for Kyle, who's a very, very soft-spoken and quiet individual, we did see emotion out of him, just not to the heightened level that you see some of the others. But... inside, I think it was still just as much for him as any other player, just the way he outwardly projects it. So very, very cool. And congratulations. As you said, his family was there. His grandpa saw him for the first time ever this weekend playing. And his grandmother had seen him and come down for Champions Cup and had walked the course, but his grandfather has a harder time getting around, and so being at Champions Cup was just not practical. So his grandma saw him for the first time competing at a high level a few months ago, but to have his grandpa down there, and Kyle's dad, Doug, had said, Innova was overly accommodating and helpful to having his Doug's dad get around and be there and be part of it. So it was that much cooler. And to hear Kyle's grandparents also say that they tune in, they watch golf, they had recognized some of the work that I had done and everything else, also insanely rewarding and fulfilling to know that again, parents and grandparents are able to tune in and watch live disc golf. It's a thing that we kind of talked about way earlier as this cool byproduct, I guess, cool product of any live broadcasting, but it's continuing to get amplified because there's so many more viewers and people taking it all in. It was awesome. So congratulations, of course. That is largely what we saw. We didn't talk to, like you said, we didn't really talk playoff with Holland. We also saw a distance exhibition take place immediately following, like we typically do. I, for the first time, didn't really get to consume a whole lot of that. I think I was doing some other things or having a conversation. It's a fun, unique display that is so USDGC, right? It's so awesome to have that also taking place. It's what I guess my side note to all of this is it becomes very challenging as to where and how attention gets created and or maintained and diverted, or all of those things, as a tournament like this magnitude wraps up. And what I mean by that
tough
is you have the distance competition or showcase that's about to take place, which is keeping the crowd involved and exciting. Now you have our MPO side, at least, having various obligations of doing long form interviews, doing, of course, an interview immediately following their tap in, but then also a longer form interview as part of Tournament Central. You sometimes then have a runner-up interview if they graciously oblige, like Nicholas did last year, like I had Bradley Williams do this year. And then Bradley Williams was also doing some stuff with Jeff Panis of Innova from a media perspective. And Bradley, at that point, wasn't around or really even notified that the awards were taking place.
Yeah, he was like doing an interview down.
He was doing something with Jeff Panis, I believe, or he might have been talking to me at the time or whenever. That's the only thing that I don't know how we fix it. I don't have a solution because there are so many different things going on, and now there's more media obligations than ever. But I hate the idea of any competitor, especially a podium finishing competitor, somehow not around and available for the awards and
for the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, assuming they want to be there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they may split because they lost in a heartbreaker or had a bad day or a bad weekend and closed out poorly, and they just want to split. That's one thing. I wish they'd still be there. But if it's another obligation holding them up from getting on the awards podium, that disheartens me. For some, and I'm not picking on this event. I'm saying this, generally speaking, I really hope we can find a way to always avoid that.
Yeah,
that's a special moment.
It really is. And the end of these big events can be chaotic. And because the media has one plan, so the DGBT has one plan. Like, I know it's the guys in the booth, the guys in the control room, and not that we should have any sway over what's going on at the event, but they don't want to hang around after the event. Like a lot of the long drive competition, the over the lake thing, I'll tell you what, those guys in the control room don't care about that. Like the awards, most of the time we don't even want to hang out for the awards because a lot of times we don't know if it's going to be 5 minutes after the round or 35 minutes after the round. And I know I've heard a lot of people say, man, DGPT and DGN, they should be live for those awards every time. And it's like, you're putting a lot of pressure. That's a half hour maybe
on top of a 12-hour day.
Well, just of trying to fill time.
Yeah, that too.
And then you have to coordinate. So let's just say, play pretend. I thought about this. Like, well, maybe you could go tournament finishes, then you do tournament central, and then the awards. But then you're telling that the event that they need to go by DGN's schedule of when tournament central lasts, and that could be 20 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, depending on how tournament central goes. It's very difficult, the coordination between everybody, and sometimes things get overlooked. And it's unfortunate, but I think we definitely can do better. And when I say we, I mean as a sport, not just our DGN, not necessarily tournament directors or PDGA. The coordination will get better, but in the last couple of years, I have seen some things that it's like, oh man, that sucks for so-and-so. That could have been better. That sucks for the event. That so-and-so didn't know this. We'll get there. I truly believe it.
Yeah, and I brought this up specifically because from his own mouth, you could essentially pick up a little bit of frustration / disappointment is a better word, in which, Bradley didn't have that moment to be on the stage after such an incredible finish. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't whining. Let me be very clear. Nothing of the sort. It just, like I said, when you're top 3 at something like a major,
this is his best finish at a major.
Exactly. So, you can understand wanting those few moments, additional moments potentially. So I'd love to see it. All right. I'm going to switch it up for just a few seconds.
Okay.
You got anything else USDGC throw pink before I move on?
No, Archibald asks why I was there.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Good freaking question.
I don't know. No, because I did honestly plan on doing some watch-along parties this weekend. I was going to dedicate some time to do that on Tuesday night after the broadcast ended. I was thinking, I'm like, man, I even said my wife's gone for the weekend. I went to work on Wednesday and I looked at flights. And I usually fly Delta because that's what
like flight numbers? You looked at flight numbers? You paid attention?
Yes. Yeah, the airplane I was in was a 7514. I don't know. No, I looked at flights and I was like, oh man. And Delta, who I use for work, I looked and I had some Delta credits from a canceled flight. And I looked and they expired at the very end of this year, like 12/31/23. And I sat and thought, I'm like, it was $600 in credits. And I was like, well, is there anything else I'm going to use it for this year? It's like, I can't think of anything.
One-way ticket to somewhere, I wish.
Tell me about it, Terry. Anywhere away from you.
Yeah, you could give me that. I'll take a one-way ticket.
No, it actually said non-transferable, too.
Damn it.
Because otherwise I would have thought about transferring it to somebody.
Sold it to me for $200.
So I looked at the flights, and I was like, all right, how much is it going to cost? I didn't know. So I looked at Thursday and Friday flights. Friday was actually more expensive. It was like $750. Thursday was $650. I had $600 in credit, and I just literally made the decision, I'm going to pay the $50 and go down to USDGC. So I Wednesday night, I booked a ticket for Thursday morning, and I got in my car Thursday morning, and I drove to the airport, got on a plane, took an Uber from the airport to the event.
What was that? About $60?
40. 40, because it was about 25 minutes from the Charlotte airport to Rock Hill. So it was
crossing state lines, folks.
Crossing state lines.
You're allowed to do that.
You are. So
you are.
Well, I'm allowed to cross every state line, Terry.
For now.
I'm working on that. So that's why I went to USDGC. It had nothing to do with media. I was fortunate enough to, talk with a lot of the media guys when I was there. It's always really nice to get to see those guys face to face because they have to listen to me more than Terry does. During broadcasts, I'm constantly in their ear. In fact, one of them looked at me and went, "You're the voice in my head." I was like, "Yeah, that's me. Lucky you." So just getting to hang out with them and talk, that was great. Getting to see a bunch of people who, many of which I have only met via chat boards or talked with online, or some people who I haven't seen in a decade. I don't think I've seen Schwebby in person in 10 years. Getting to see him. We went to the putting competition that night at Slow Play.
Yeah.
Well, and so there was a lot of things I got to see and meet. And for anyone that came up and said hi or said that they enjoyed the podcast, but for Terry and I, thank you very much. It was really fun to get back to USDGC and see how big that event has become. Just monstrous. The vendor village was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I know I aired my slight grievance with the rules earlier tonight, but one thing I will never ever doubt is the professionalism of that event, the quality of event they put on, and the effort that they put in, because it is hands down bigger and better than almost any other event. Just the way it works, just the way it is. The closest thing I think that comes to it is like GBO and the block party, having the number of vendors and the food and whatnot. But that's, later in the night. That's kind of, Emporia's not that big, but it is off-site technically from the courses. This is right there, right across the street from the course, right next to two other courses, mini courses, may they be. this event is huge, and they cater to almost everything. It's great.
Yeah, it has really. It was awesome that it was its 25th anniversary.
That was another reason.
Everything that we saw this year was truly incredible, and the diversity of the vendors, the manufacturers, the different organizations doing all the different things that are out there, and everyone from the PDGA, tent offering up things to a couple of different. Now we have a couple of different, apps and gadgets that are working on measuring things for your discs. We'll continue to talk about those as they both progress. Artistic things, food vendors, beverage carts, just an entire hole number 7, as many of you saw, entirely decked out.
The Zuka Center,
decked out by Zuka, and to see Jason and the crew, and then, like I said, all the different disc manufacturers, a couple other media teams.
That's the one I was telling you.
Foundation out there.
That's the one crew I didn't get a chance to meet, was the Zuka crew. Like I just every time. I tended to walk around it because there's always people surrounding it, and I don't know those guys like you know them, but I wanted to go in and introduce myself at some point, but I didn't know where they were or if they were even in there because I don't really know them, so I didn't get a chance to kind of check that place out other than walking around it.
It was a lot of good stuff going on out there for sure. All right, I am ready to prepare. A little over 12 hours ago, I've got all lined up a SmashBoxx exclusive.
What?
Completely exclusive here on SmashBoxx, and a few other people know, but not
I knew
the rest of the world. So here is your exclusive. Pablo Genesis Macbeth was born 7 pounds 10 ounces at 8:31 a.m. this morning. I'm going to assume that is Eastern time, because they were down in the Eastern time zone, but 8:31 a.m. this morning. Hannah and Paul welcoming Pablo Genesis Macbeth into the world. Baby and Hannah are doing well, are doing good and healthy. Paul was and is a superhero through all of it. And Hannah said she went and had him naturally. So,
Oofta. Good for you, Hannah.
God bless you, Hannah.
That's right.
She says it was a lot. I don't think anyone would dispute otherwise. So congratulations. Very, very cool. Again, Pablo Genesis Macbeth.
Of course she'd have it on a Tuesday.
Of course. SmashBoxx exclusive.
SmashBoxx exclusive.
And also,
only makes sense.
Also, they are going to be able to enjoy a SmashBoxxTV onesie that is already there, and she said excited for when the onesie will fit here, hopefully soon. So, we just have to assume that Pablo's already getting offers from disc manufacturers, sponsorships.
I would assume so. Yeah,
I would think so as well. So, there you go. Again, SmashBoxx exclusive.
Yeah, we sent the baby and Hannah a onesie. I could not find a onesie to fit Paul. I looked.
Oh, I've got one for him. Don't worry. I mean, I have to wear this thing, and then he would be in front of me, but we'll make it all work.
It's a little awkward.
Again, seriously though, couldn't be happier. The best news, of course, just being that Hannah and little Pablo all healthy and everything good to go. So congratulations on, I was just looking at the date again, 10/10/2023. So congratulations to them.
Bravo.
Man. And I'm just thinking, of course, I'll be in Bend starting tomorrow. I'll be in the booth this weekend. Give a little heads up on what few of the details we know. Myself, along with Valerie for the FPO in the mornings, and then it's myself along with Nate Doss, and I believe Sexton's coming to town again, and it will be us as a 3-man booth this weekend.
We didn't even talk about the 3-man booth at USDGC. Kenny joined, and there was a lot of talk about Kenny and how good he was, how great his voice sounded. His voice sounded less raspy than I recall from back in the day. You know, he always kind of had a deeper, raspy voice. It feels a little bit smoother now. Still got a good gravel to it, but not quite what it used to be. Very well received, I would say, Kenny in the booth. I know that day one, there was a lot of internet chatter about the three of them and just not really being cohesive with each other, as you could expect, as normally you have Ian and Philo in the booth, but adding a third person, it takes a while to get that rhythm down, kind of like what you, Nate and Nate have. There's a lot of communication, but days 2, 3, and 4 were much better. So it was, I would say Kenny was well received. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of him next year. Based on some of the conversations that we had, it didn't seem like a commentary gig was in his future, not a regular one. Maybe we see him again at USDGC next year, maybe a Worlds or something, but I don't believe he is going to be like a regular on the tour.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said that they want more Kenny. They thought he was great. Very few people said otherwise, and even if they do, you
can't please everybody.
Exactly. As you just said, it's just schedule wise. That's not practical. It will be interesting to see what other events he shows interest in. I'm sure he would be a welcome member if he was showing interest in being at a few of the other events or any of the other events, but that largely is just going to go to the schedule. And
I could see the Southeastern events. Maybe he does like the South or the Florida Open, something like that. He knows the Throwdown the Mountain course. Not Worlds, because that's up in Virginia, but a USDGC, maybe a Champions Cup, even though no one's going to know the course. So really, but things like that, I think
he's got a number of things going on in his life, including a couple of either adult or near adult age kids, along with a younger one that's 11 and an 11-year-old daughter. And you see him light up when he talks about his family and his current life and his obligations. And I'm not saying we're not going to see him. I'm just saying, do not take it to the bank if you're thinking you're rolling, Kenny commentary 17 out of 24 events next year. That's not going to happen. Clearly, most of the world would openly accept it and gladly accept it, as would I. I'm here for it. We get all that, but just keep in mind, he still has a whole nother life that is entirely separate from disc golf at the same time, as legendary as he is. So that's what I'll say. It was great to see him. I've talked to him and had a few conversations with him over the last few years, and I know he was. I was there when he had originally tried to play his last USDGC and then ultimately withdrew, so on and so forth. Him and I actually had talked a few months ago when there was conversation about the Throwdown property and everything else that's been taking place. So it's great to see him and have him involved. And again, we take him at any point with open arms, but don't and
I don't
it to the bank.
I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I was standing there chatting with him and a couple other people, and someone asked if he was gonna, play more as well, because we got to see him play in the skins, and he flat out said, he's like, I can't. He's like, I can play now around without pain, because Kenny had some back issues and I think a hip issue, but he said the next day I'm sore. He's like really sore, and if I play 2 days in a row, not only am I playing sore the second day, but the third day, he's like, it's almost debilitating. Yeah. So he can't play. He says, I would need like a day between each round in order to compete. He's just not in the condition due to, whatever injuries he's had to be able to compete on a regular basis. So, and I think he has come to grips with that. I think he even had said that at some point it was a little dark for him. Yeah. Just realizing that his career was kind of over and that he wasn't able to do this. But now he's really, thanks to, I think, family and now just getting healthier and a little bit of reinterest in the disc golf community. Because he told me, he's like, I watch live. Someone asked him about the post-production stuff. He's like, I don't know. I watch live. And it's like, thanks, Kenny. I appreciate that. But he is dipping his toe back into the disc golf community after being out for a little while for whatever various reasons. So I'm like you, I'm really excited to see if we can get a little bit more of him and continue with our wonderful 12-time champion.
Yeah.
12-time Open champion, because I think he's got a Masters or 2 in there.
Yeah. 3.
3? I thought he had 2. That's fine. He probably has 3. I'm very
2 or
well.
3. That sounds about right.
I don't think he counts those very much.
Yeah.
he holds those with a little less weight.
Yeah. So we'll see. And someone said there's something about flying him out. I'll just say this one last time. It will never be from a lack of the media side wanting or accepting of him. It will always be on his schedule. So it's not as if someone's like, oh no, actually we've got our team all lined up for such and such. So we don't want you there that weekend, Kenny. That's never going to be. I'm going to go ahead and just assume he essentially has an open invite. So if he did want to show any interest in any given event, there's a way that he would be worked into it. So good to see. And then on the FPO side,
well, I was still talking about Kenny. The skins match was a lot of fun.
Yes, for sure.
Watching him and Barry and Sexton and Shoestrick.
Yeah.
Shoestrick Shoestrick still crushes.
Yeah.
He threw a shot on hole 3 that I don't think anybody all event got to where he was. And I believe you can watch it out on DGN right now if you are interested in the skins. It's out there. You can see where he was on hole 3. And then he almost misses the Mando from there. But it's a whole nother story. Amazing. And then to be putting left-handed, he had his moments. He missed a few putts that I don't think Will normally would miss if he were throwing righty, but he can't. It was great to see people who have probably never seen Ken Climo throw in person.
Yes.
Like, I bet you at least 60% of that crowd has never seen him throw in person. And you could look around and see so many of our pros just walking along so they could watch this. And that's what made me smile, turning around and seeing guys that are on tour who are excited to see Kenny throw because they never got to witness it. And of course, you've got a bunch of old heads like us that are just smiling because we know what Kenny can do. And he showed it even on hole 7 when he pumped the crowd up and then parked the hole. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so, just the fact that you watched him throw the shot you did on hole 1 right out of the gate after, doing commentary for the previous 3 hours, and then steps up onto the tunnel shot on hole 1. And think about the dozens, if not hundreds of times hole 1 was hit by, someone hit a tree or a Mando or whatever on hole 1, and then you watch Kenny lace it right down the middle of the fairway. It was very cool and very incredible. So, yes, make sure you go out there and consume that when you can. And then I was just going to say quickly on the FPO side, yes, we also had I don't want to say subtle, but yeah, smooth, subtle, very even keel voice of one Juliana Korver along with Zoe Andyke, and then hosted in the play-by-play perspective was Charlie Eisenhood. Did I see, or did I hear, I should say, Charlie Eisenhood going with Team Tatar a little bit here this weekend.
He is, I think.
And I told him, I said, I hope to God, because I wasn't watching online, I was just listening in a little bit. I said, I hope to God he got blasted the way I did after I went all in on the pronunciation.
On Tatar?
Yeah, on Tatar. Just in Tatar.
Yeah,
I hope he got blasted or did people give him the pass because it's Charlie and he's
I think
good looking.
Please, that guy. He's like 4'2". I swear to God, that guy's tall.
I don't care how tall he is.
No, I think
you heightist.
I am a heightist. I'm not gonna lie. That's the other thing. How many people, Terry, came up to me and said, "Oh, wow,
I wish I had a nickel."
So I wish I had a nickel for everyone that came up to me like, "Wow, you're taller you're taller than I expected." Like, I know you said you were tall, but would come up and look up as you and I are standing next to each other, because they're like, "You don't look that tall on camera." And it's like, well, I do funny things. But anyway, yes, I think you took the brunt of that, Tatar, and everybody at that point was like, "Oh my God, he's saying tartar or something dumb." And then people realized after a lot of persuasion that no, that's pretty close to how you pronounce it. So Charlie got to slide in on the back end and be like, "Oh yeah, Miller took all the heat. I'm just going to more or less say what Miller says," and everyone now is accepting of it. I don't think he got the heat you did there.
I know it's not fair.
You're a trailblazer.
I'm not saying
by pronouncing someone's name right,
and I
or close to right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Let me be very clear. We could still argue that it is not perfect.
No,
and every once in a while, I will continue to accidentally revert back to.
Yeah, I said Tatar tonight, but
I'm fully accepting of all of those criticisms. However, still going to continue to forge forward with a closer version of correct than what we have been doing. Okay?
Way to go, Terry Miller. Way to go.
Charlie skating by, as you say. All right, should we call it for a regular show?
We can call it for the regular show.
Yeah, I think we're going to call it for a regular show. We've what is that? Is that the right time? Yeah, so it's been.
Yeah, remember we started an hour early, Terry.
I know, that's why I'm all thrown off here tonight. Things are definitely a little crazy. Well, with that, we've got a few other subjects, things we could talk about in the after show. We'll also have a giveaway. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of weird ideas in my head. Thank you so much to Holland, of course, for joining us. Congrats to Kyle Klein. I reached out to Kyle. We had talked to Kyle, actually, like Johnny said, at the
Top Golf after he won.
After he had won, and I don't know if he was confused. He's probably sleeping, if I know Kyle. But I did reach out to him today. I didn't get a response back, and so he's ghosting me, and I'm going to tell his daddy. And but congratulations, of course, to Kyle and Holland and the rest of the crew out there at the Throw Pink and the USDGC top-notch event here this year. And I think it was on display better than ever for a lot of the things Johnny was talking about and just the way everything went down, and then treated to some pretty good golf overall on both sides. It was definitely awesome. Holland, our champion from Throw Pink, Johnny V. I'm the disc golf guy. We're going to stand down for just a few moments, reset the stream here on YouTube, so don't go anywhere. Then we'll come back. We'll have an after show. We'll have a giveaway. We'll talk about things more disc golf and non-disc golf related, and we'll take it from there. SmashBoxx TV podcast 475 in the books. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxx TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxx TV podcast 475's After Show. After Show.
Yeah.
We're here. After shows, and somehow if you're new here, a few of you might be. This is where we talk anything and everything, and often we will rely on the chat board to maybe help steer or continue the conversation and or topics. You know, some people go out and ask for topics that they feel like need to be talked about. Nope. The regular show, we shove down your throat whatever we want, and then in the after show, we react to whatever you give us.
Yeah, we're on the fly kind of guy.
Yeah, we're on the fly. So, after show is here. Let's start with everyone's favorite, which really, I think, kind of quietly slid under the radar today. Ratings updates.
Nobody cares.
No, they do. The only note I'm going to make, because I literally looked at 0 other ratings today. I was up at 1 or 2 a.m. still, and I happened to hit refresh because it randomly crossed my thought pattern. Kristen Tattar remains sub 1,000. Where at sub 1,000?
She went down, actually, didn't she?
2 points. Sub 1,000. This is no disrespect in any way. This is simply a time and date stamp for you. Obviously, the entire conversation
Stop rubbing it in.
was all about her getting to 1,000. I still think she will get there.
Probably.
But she's not getting there in today's update. She is officially
She's not getting there this year.
at 998.
Unless she... Well, no, Pro Tour probably doesn't. That's a good question. I wonder...
It should not.
Why not?
Mainly because you're given 5 strokes if you're good.
Could you not?
Good rounds 3 and 4 count?
Yeah.
Maybe. Rounds 1 and 2 absolutely should not.
Couldn't you submit the PDJ score without those?
No. That'd be stupid. Because you play differently if you've got a 5-stroke lead.
I know.
And you get down to hole, whatever, a hole 10, and from that point forward,
you cruise.
You've already gotten a 5-stroke lead.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is, be in the top X amount for the next day. No. Now, if rounds 3 and 4 somehow counted, great.
After the scores
Flip
are
a
reset.
coin, do I care? Whatever. But rounds 1 and 2 absolutely should not. And
they're not going
to quickly gloss over that. This weekend is going to be a unique format. And I don't have it in front of me, but the long and short of it is the
worst shot triples.
The higher you finished during the Pro Tour, generally speaking, the better, more advantage you're going to have coming into what we're deeming as the semifinals. In the semifinals, and I have it right in front of me on the FPO side, the semifinals, Kristen, who won the tour, is 5 under par, which kind of sounds funny, right?
It's a good
she
start.
hasn't even started playing.
It's a solid start.
She is even shows it on UDisc this very minute.
I know.
She is 5 under par. Missy Gannon is 4 under par. Owen Scoggins, Holland Hanley are both 3 under par. And I'm already there, so I'm going to read the rest. Ella Hansen, Kat Murch, Haley King, Katrina Allen are all 2 under par. And then the next card, Sarah Hokum, Macy Valadiaz, Jessica Weiss, and Allie Smith are all 1 under par. Those are your top 12 women in the Pro Tour standings that are at the event. The rest of the women, the other 9 women, are all even. And I know this sounds really weird to wrap your head around, so it's good we have an extra night here on a Tuesday to even discuss it quickly. But that's where they're starting. So what they'll do is those are the scores they're at this very minute. They're going to play 1 round on Thursday at Nevin with those starting scores. Then they will carry over whatever score they have. So if Kristen's at 5 under, she shoots another 5 under. She's at 10 under. She carries that into Friday's round. Everyone carries every score from Thursday into Friday. And then at the end of Friday,
there's a cut.
There's a cut to the finals. And then everyone else starts at 0. Everyone starts at 0.
I don't like that.
I hear you. Everyone starts at 0. And they play Saturday and Sunday.
I would like...
Oh, God. Yes, what would you like?
Additional strokes on Saturday and Sunday. So Tatar would, not 5, maybe make it like 2 or 3, maybe 2 strokes. Make it only get like the top 3 people. Maybe it was 3, 2, 1. Just because I get resetting it, but ultimately, I feel like one of the complaints with the old setup was not only did people not get to see players all 4 days, which I think is a silly argument and whatever, but that we maybe got a little bit of flukiness with some of the winners. Nathan Queen winning. Just, it felt, and no disrespect to Nathan, because he put on, he crushed, he cruised through those rounds. But I think people wanted a more traditional style. But I feel like what's going to happen when after, someone skates in an eighth, whoever that might be, all the scores are reset, and then that person wins by 1 after the 2 rounds, because then it becomes a 2-round tournament. As we know, anything can happen in 2 rounds. Usually the more rounds, the more the cream will rise to the top, just statistically. Is it really any different? Is it any less, quote unquote, fluky as opposed to having the way it was? I don't know. I would love to see, winning the tour give you maybe a little bit more advantage, reset the scores, and then give them like a 3-2-1 for the top 3 people. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I was just thinking this before. I'm like, it's, it is what it is. We'll see how it plays out.
Well, and then just to also further clarify, first of all, it's different on the MPO side. I'll quickly just read a few of Kelvin.
Sam says the idea is get the strokes out after the cut. The scores go back to what they shot. No, after the cut, it goes. Everyone's playing from 0. Everyone's like playing from the exact same spot. So it's like a brand new tournament after the cut.
It's like, hey, you just showed up to Saturday. Now you're going to play a 2-round tournament, and winner is the winner at that point. So on the MPO side, quickly, Kelvin, your winner, he got 6 strokes as opposed to Kristen getting 5. I think that's just kind of the overall because of field sizes.
Yep.
Isaac Robinson has 5. Gannon Burr and Ricky Wysocki round out that top card, both starting at 4 under. McMahon, Oram, Lazat, Klein all have 3 strokes or at 3 under. Barella, Radalin, Proctor, and Ezra Robinson are all at 2 under, along with Alden Harris, Goose, Chris Dickerson, Ezra Aderhold. And then Kevin Jones, Adam Hammis, Bradley Williams, James Conrad, Ben Calloway, Corey Ellis, Joel Freeman, and Chris Clemens all have 1 stroke. They're all 1 under. Everyone else is even. That's what you have on the MPO side. Again, 32 competitors, top 12 advance to the finals. So you have to be in the top 12. Now, you just said it earlier, too. You'd love to see, the higher finishers have a little more of an advantage. Always keep in mind, ties are simply by tour points.
Correct.
So there could be a 9-way tie for that 12th spot. Whoever had the most tour points gets that. There's no extra holes or playoff of any kind at that point. Whoever has came in as the higher, better seed just automatically continues in a tiebreaker scenario.
So actually, Sam on the board said that that's not what he thought, but that was his idea. Let's just say, after those 2 rounds, make the cut, and then take the strokes away and let them play. So it actually forces you. So Kristen Tatar can't just, with 6 or 7 or 8 holes to go, if she has a 6-stroke lead, she's making sure she can't just cruise in. She's going to want to continue to push in order to maintain those strokes. I could see something like that. I would not be opposed to that. It would force players to continue to try and play well, as opposed to just thinking, well, I'm pretty much in. I don't have to really. All I have to do is maintain here.
Yeah,
because I've got 6 strokes over 8th place with 5 to go. Now I can just cruise.
And we also hear from plenty of players who talk about changing up a strategy of, just trying to protect holes or protect strokes. Sometimes how quickly that can backfire. And we're talking about a course like Nevin, where strokes can be, so to speak, thrown all over the place. Of course, a different style of course. I think it's easier to play safe, or otherwise it may not be the case at a place like Nevin. So anyway, that's the format. I just wanted to share that. It will be confusing, I'm sure, to some degree. Although I do feel of all the formats we've had in the last few years,
this is the easiest.
This is the most straightforward one we have had.
Might not be my favorite, but it's the easiest one to understand. It is the most straightforward. And
also to clarify, as I listed off all of the women a moment ago, of the 20 that will all start on Thursday, and they'll all play Thursday and Friday, it's the top 8 on the FPO side. So top 8 on FPO, top 12 on MPO. Okay?
Man, I hope those rounds go fast. They should.
They should. We're not going to have a lot of other, obviously cards on the course. You would like to think that things should move along pretty swiftly. Swiftly, that is.
Oh,
I missed her at the game last night. Or not last night, Sunday.
She wasn't. I don't think she was at the game.
No, on Sunday, she wasn't.
No.
I missed her.
for those wondering,
she missed me too, by the way.
Yeah, certainly did. The course is a little different from the previous year. Some of the holes are renumbered. There are actually different holes this year. I know the crew's been putting in a ton of work out there. Some of it couldn't even be started until Monday, is my understanding. So the course is going to be different than what you recall from last year.
I've got a whole document, but that'll get broken down as we lead into the first round.
And you can go to UDisc and look at this the scores and click on the maps to see what is going on if you're really that into it or interested. I'm directing the show, and I'm not even that interested in it. They're gonna play whatever hole you put in front of them. They're gonna play it.
Yeah.
How it works.
Show me where to go and what I need to do.
Where's hole 1 and what's the course record, right?
Exactly, right. Now, one of the, and again, you guys have been following all year, but I don't want to say does it feel weird, but just think about how much, and it is what it is because of timing and their own volition, but think about how much we've seen and, so to speak, heard from Evelina and Henna over the last few weeks, how well they've been playing and been in the running for wins, not just not just there, but in the running for wins. Whether you think of Evelina at MVP, and then you think of what we saw from both of them at the United States Women's, then you saw them both having solid finishes here at Throw Pink. Unfortunately for them, too little, too late at this part in the season. But to know that today or yesterday, they both got on a plane and headed back to Finland, and I wish them the best in their travels in their off season, because of course they don't want to be finished now, but they're still finished.
They're still finished.
Hey-oh, they don't want their season to come to an end yet. However, it has for their play here. But just to me, the fact that we've seen so much of them, and now they're already on their way back because they didn't make it into this weekend. So reading off the board, Carney says, why can it not be this order? European Championships, then USDGC, then Tour Championship, and Worlds last. Worlds last. The order of it is all kind of dumb.
I can understand wanting Worlds to be last, but I can also, I've brought up before, how do we want Worlds at the end of the season when maybe your players are the most worn out, when your players are maybe the most hurt? There's pros and cons to it. I get what you're saying. Like, you feel like Worlds should be the culmination of the season. It should be the big event to finish everything off, which for many years it was. Like, even if it was in July or August, that there wasn't much after that. Sometimes there were a few national tours, but those did not come close to the excitement of a World Championships. I mean, some events just have specific schedules they gotta be at. European Championships, we don't know what that park looks like on other weekends. That might be booked all of September for something, or all of October, or all of May. Everybody has a specific weekend, and hopefully it works out for them. So Carney asks, what's the backstory on the putting improvements? I think it's called, don't get me wrong, I don't know.
No, I don't think it is.
It might be practice.
I don't think that's exclusively it. I think it is more so mental than physical.
I think it's part of it, but I think her putting looks different. She's not flicking it with her wrist nearly like what she was. It's more, it is a slightly different style and a putt. Like she is more confident, and it is a slightly different putting style. Like I said, she used to have like a lot of weird wrist action, and I think that hurt her accuracy, and she has less of that now. So I don't know, but it's a lot of practice too, because anytime you change up your putt, you will need to practice. And as we saw, practice makes confidence. If you're hitting all of them in practice, you would hope that would roll over into your tournaments. It doesn't always, because as Kenny said, the fairway between your ears is the is the toughest one.
I'm scrolling up on a few comments that were made a little bit earlier in the show. So if you said something there, you just know I got you on watch. One thing, Ed, I think it was earlier, had said two marshals on every hole. Insane, absurd, not going to happen, probably ever, and definitely no time in the near future. And
a lot of marshals.
That's an insane amount of marshals, and that's why I'm completely dismissive of it. Two marshals on every hole just is not practical. So I guess I'm just kind of blatantly rolling off with that one.
Sam Martin asks me, being that it's been a few years since you got to watch the event in person, are there any players that impressed me, or something to watch on DGN or something to watch that DGN doesn't show? I was very impressed by some players, not just their play, because I think DGN does a good job with play. What's on the course, I think you see and you can experience pretty well. Afterwards, the organization of the players and signing discs. I watched some players come off the course, kind of look at the spectator lines, and never even think about going to sit down to sign discs. They either kind of headed the other direction, maybe they had somewhere to be. Like, I'll say this, Kristen Tatar never once sat down at the signature thing of the PDGA because she went down to the
Latitude booth,
and sat there for an hour and a half to 2 hours every day after the event. So like, I can't judge a player on what they do because I don't watch them all the time. But there were some players that just didn't sit down there because I don't think Brody ever sat down at the PDGA one because he was at the Foundation one.
Sure.
So he went down there and people could find him down there. But some of the players I watched come off the course, and it didn't matter how well they shot or how poorly they shot. There were a few of them that just, before even seeing the line, they put down their bag and they just turned around the corner and said, "Who wants a signature?" And I was very impressed with that. I think I even told this to Terry. The Prodigy kids, the Alden and Isaac and Gannon and Gavin, like they just sat there. They turned around and they just sat there as long as anyone needed. I watched Aaron Gossage come off the course after a mediocre round. He was so upset with himself. He stood 15 feet from that signature area and just berate himself under his breath. I was pretty close, so I could kind of hear him, but he kind of paced back and forth for about 3 minutes, just kind of mumbling, talking to his caddy a little bit about how bad he did and how dumb he was and how, he did this and this wrong and how he wasted this opportunity. And then he took a deep breath, and most of the chairs were full at that point. And he turned around and he walked up and down the signature line, just making sure everybody got a signature that wanted one. I was super impressed with that because you could see how upset he was after his round, but he was able to internalize it, get it out, whatever he needed to do. He wasn't obnoxious about it. He was very calm. You could see that he was just trying to get it out of himself. And then he went on and with a smile on his face, signed every single disc that was out there. I saw players that went out of their way to visit kids. There was a young lady who I think she was fighting brain cancer. And a lot of the women were pulled out of their way to go get, she'd signed minis for everybody. So she handed out minis, and just, I was very impressed with a lot of the players on how they acted. It was very cool. So that's what impressed me the most. Obviously with USDGC, it's different than every other event because it's the biggest. They put in so much effort. So the vendor village was really cool. Exclusive drops, huge. Innova had a huge area for buying product. Other places had your normal tents. You could buy and sell stuff. Players just walking around and chatting and things like that. All of which was cool. And like I said, I didn't get a chance to get on the Zuka area, but seeing Will Schustrick again was impressive because you forget how hard and how straight and how good his form was. Like, I knew it. I remember back when he came to Standing Rocks, watching him throw at the time a rock, just so far and so straight. And I remember even at the time thinking, wow, that he throws that far. But then seeing it still at his age, at the old age of like mid-30s, I think he's probably 33.
I don't know if he's that old. Well, in 2012 when he won,
yep,
he was like 18 or
Okay.
16 or 17. Sorry.
Oh.
So yeah.
So he's just past 30 then.
Yeah, maybe.
So I either way, seeing that was still impressive. Realizing how little snap Kenny and Barry have and can still throw it so far because they're so smooth compared to some of the other guys. Like you've seen all these young players throw and crush these discs, and you hear it come out of their fingers, and they throw so hard. And then watching Kenny and Barry throw, and they're not throwing the distance that these kids are, but they're throwing pretty far, and there's like no audible snap to it. It's all spin and angle control and disc selection. It's really cool because someone asked Kenny like, "Oh, what are you throwing these days?" And Kenny's like, "Understable plastic, like katana."
I throw aliens, and
He was like, "I think I have a katana. I have like an old Wraith. I have," and it's just like, and it made me chuckle. I'm like, "Yeah, you don't need the newest and best discs." I'm sure Innova would love for him to throw whatever new stuff they have, but he is able to get by with.
Kenny's gonna beat every single person listening to us right now with his bag from 10 or 12 or 15 years ago. I'd have no doubt about that
For sure. So that's some of the things that really impressed me at the event, and as far as players go. I mean, I didn't walk along with much other than the lead cards, the top two. So. And those guys you see all the time on broadcasts. So what they didn't really shock me or impress me, so to speak. Not that like anything more above and beyond that of what I already am.
I think one of the bigger challenges when you, and I don't want to call it an awkwardness, but it's always funny when you sit down at those tents, and that's why I do love the idea of just kind of walking through a line, is you sit down at the tent and you don't know if there's 100 people in line, you don't know if 10 people or 99 people want your signature. And then the way the line meanders, and then there's a couple different pros, and there's some might be an awkwardness of, you want this pro, but you don't necessarily want that pro. And I think just all of that kind of decision making that goes into it, as opposed to when a player, like you said, kind of is like, hey, anybody that wants one, and you're just kind of walking and picking through. I think it makes it a little less.
I don't know if it makes it less awkward or
more when someone's like, I'm good.
Yeah, just play pretend.
Their head down.
Play pretend. Gossage is walking down the thing.
Oh, look at my score.
And you've got like two discs in your hand, and you're like,
yeah.
No, I ain't got anything. He puts them behind his back.
And everybody needs, autographs for different reasons. And sometimes you have the disc that matches the player, and you only want it on that one, or you have your favorite player, or you're getting a disc signed for someone else. There's all those different, factors that go into it. I think the worst thing anyone can do is ever get offended whatsoever when somebody may or may not want it on theirs, because there's so much reasoning that goes on behind some of the. Now, if somebody's like, well, I'm only getting top 20 this year, and I saw after MVP you slid into 22nd, so now I'm going to skip you. Like, then maybe that's a little brutal, but otherwise everybody's got their own reasons for why they would or wouldn't want any one or more autographs. So, but very cool to see so many autographs happening nonetheless. Sam says DGN did a cool job with Bradley Williams rounds 3 and 4, even with less than ideal shot. Looked like he was actually having fun. Yeah. Bradley has matured in a lot of ways, and we see how he plays golf. We see the fact that I think he said he's 37.
Jeez, that guy's old.
Telling me. And he thought, he even had said, he's like, wow, watching Kenny and seeing what Kenny was just doing. And then, of course, there's a lot of the other all-time greats that he can look to. But the fact that he is, you may not think about it as much, because maybe I don't think he gives that kind of 37-year-old vibe.
No, he doesn't.
At all. That he's out there hanging with some of the kids that he kids that he's hanging with these days. It's incredibly impressive.
And he
I
has
love
such, obviously, as everyone says, such a smooth form. It doesn't feel like, it feels like he could keep that particular form up for another 10 years. Just keep throwing the same distance without, whereas if you watch, again, like a Will Schustrick or a Gannon Burr, the amount of stress and snap and power they put through their bodies. I was talking to Jen Allen at the driving competition on the final day, watching these guys who, honestly, I couldn't name one of them. It was kind of funny. I didn't get a good look at them. I was kind of back a little bit, but it was none of the big names that we would have expected to see, like a Double G and Gannon Burr, even though I think Gannon did get up there and throw a one at some point. It was a bunch of guys who crushed. They threw so far. But Jen Allen and I were talking, and she's like, yeah, how long are these guys going to last? How long, or even these girls, some of them, like Holyn and Ellie, who throws with some really good velocity. Jen's like, I don't know if they're going to have the 30-year career that I am. Mm-hmm. And I said, we don't know. You're right. We flat out don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But Bradley, I feel like he could keep going like this for a long time.
Which is, I'll just say this quickly. It's funny because you weren't around when Bradley and I did the runner-up interview, so to speak.
No, I tried to avoid you.
And
mostly.
then we were walking back to where all the autographs were, along with, what ended up being an award ceremony and everything else. And as we were walking back, that's when he told me about this and being 37. And I said almost the exact same thing. I said, with your form, it doesn't feel as if you're exerting yourself in the same ways, but you're still getting this very impressive distance. So I said almost literally the exact same thing you did to him. And as we were walking back after his performance, and pretty cool to see. I did not consume, as you may expect, Johnny nor I really consumed hardly any of what was taking place on the live broadcast. And because we were out there obviously in person and live and on site. So it was just an interesting perspective, because most times when I'm on a live broadcast, either I'm in the booth, like I'll be tomorrow or this weekend, or I'm out on the course. And this weekend they had Perkins on the course for both of the rounds, so I wasn't in tune with every single word that was being said. And so it was just yet a different perspective overall that I had when it was all said and done, and everything was great. So Carney is saying DGPT is too long, in my opinion. Rather it be 300 to 400 feet more technical. Better the players also, maybe take 45 minutes off the round. I mean, that's going to continue to be a question that as we grow and evolve, and we used to think 6,000 and 7,000 and 8,000 foot courses were a big deal. Now we're pushing 9, 10, 11, 12,000, whatever the number is. What did I just see for this weekend at Nevin, which is going to be technical and long at, I got the number for you. 10,770. That's not as long as some of the others, but 10,
no, but it's still long.
770.
Anytime you get over 10,000 is long.
Yeah, that's more than average of more than 500 feet a hole. It's crazy. Another thing we didn't touch on, and I saw them on the board, they probably sensibly logged off since then. Ace Run Pro.
Oh, those guys.
Those guys. Not only did I get my hugs in, as usual,
as did I.
But pretty cool that they ultimately are. I don't know if awarded is quite the right word, but they're getting a chase card champion off of their coverage in Holland Hanley this week. Spoiler, in Holland Hanley this week. So that's kind of cool for them. Chase card, no matter who's on it, whether it was Gatekeeper last year or GK Pro on it last year, Ace Run this year. Let's be honest, chase card FPO struggles to get viewership, regardless of who's on it.
And getting more chase card champions would help that.
It certainly could. And just the fact that those guys, whether you're, I always make the joke that they're still covering 18 holes of golf, and they probably actually technically are covering more of it because they probably threw a few more shots. And so to do all of that work and then sometimes not get a large following or viewership, and you still have to do just as much work. The commentators that they line up working just as hard, those guys putting in long days, just nothing but love. And so this time getting a chase card champion, something unique clearly for this weekend. I have a dilemma.
Oh, Terry,
That sidetracked me for just a second.
Tell me your dilemma. I'll answer it.
Part of my flight in getting to Bend tomorrow, or Redmond technically, and then getting into Bend, part of my leg, my United leg.
Your left leg or your right leg?
My United leg, my legs. I have the option upon check-in. I'm a silver member. I have the option
or you're old
to keep an aisle seat that I currently have back in 28C. I'll dox myself. 28C, I think is it. Or because I'm a silver member and we're within the check-in time frame of 24 hours, I can go to what they call like a premier seat. Not first class, just a premier seat, which moves you up closer.
Does it give you more room?
It gives you, well, one of the options is in fact an exit row.
Ooh, that's more room.
Gives you more room, but you don't get to recline. Although it's going to be, a 7:00 flight, so I'm not going to be that tired. There's no recline.
Do you usually recline?
I do. I do. Yeah, always.
I don't. I think it's fucking rude.
Well, that's silly.
I hate people who recline.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Because then if
it's almost always into my knees.
Well, I think it's effing rude that you're that tall. I mean,
no, because if people recline, honestly, I swear to God, I will keep kneeing their seat.
Yeah, and
I will keep bumping
which is
it
obviously rude.
on purpose.
Like, if the airlines don't want
not
people
like
to
mean.
recline, then they shouldn't have the seats allow it.
Well,
right? Wouldn't that make sense?
How come I can't put my feet up on your seat? Literally put my feet up over your seat. Otherwise, they should make the seats taller, Terry.
I'm sure. I'm guessing an airline stewardess would stop you from doing that.
I'm guessing they would, but make the seats taller so I can't put my feet up on your head.
I don't think that's the same.
I will constantly move around and bump that chair. Because
that's fine.
Until someone either turns around and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were so tall."
And it's funny because I think I love the internet to suggest. What's more rude, rightfully reclining or intentionally kicking someone's seat? You're telling me that rightfully reclining is more rude.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Let's be clear on that. Anyway,
and I kick the seat and bump it with my knees.
My question is, here's the only dilemma to this, because normally I'd instantly move up into one of these better seats because I think they also give you a few more points.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is kind of silly. Like, I reserved a seat in whatever section. If you end up flying in a different section, they give you more points, but it doesn't cost me anything to move to that section. Here's the only conversation, though. Here's the only challenge. Do I give up the aisle seat to go to a middle seat that might have more room?
Yeah, yes, 100%. Why do you care about the aisle seat?
The aisle seat means there's only one person next to me, and then I have an aisle.
Okay.
If I go to a middle seat...
What good is the aisle, though, other than having one person next to you?
Only having one person next to you.
Okay. That doesn't matter.
Or do I go to a middle seat and potentially make two people less excited to sit on both sides of me?
Yeah.
That's the question I'm currently faced with. I can check in now. Yeah. It's honestly because I'm going to be less comfortable in a middle seat. Let's just put it that way. If you haven't noticed, I'm not thin.
Yeah, but you're not that big.
I'm not that big that I'm
that you're taking up.
I'm spilling over, and making other people sweat. I know that.
I told you this. My first flight from Milwaukee to Detroit is where my first layover was on the way to USDGC. I got a seat that was a twofer. I was in an exit row, so I'd have more space, because that's what I always shoot for, because I don't want to bump people. Like, I do, again, if they recline they're into my knees. You have to be cognizant of people around you. You can't just do whatever you want because you're allowed. Otherwise, I should be able to stick my feet out in the aisle as far as I want. Oh, sorry, people are walking.
Well,
there.
you can until they'll tell you to move them because they can't be there for safety reasons.
Great.
That's again that's a protocol.
Yeah. It's like the people who just take off their shoes and stuff. That stuff's gross. But anyway, so I always try to shoot for seats that have more space. There was a gentleman next to me who at least 400 pounds, at least. And so there's two of us, and he clearly picked the exit row because probably his size. He was a little taller, but he was very large up top. And the entire flight, which was only thankfully about an hour, I had to sit at like a 2:00 position into the aisle because I couldn't sit straight up because he was so large. And I'm not a small guy. I'm not like, my shoulders are wide. I'm 6'6". I'm not like crazy skinny. I'm not Gannon Burr. I can like crawl under a seat. I have, I'm wide.
You got some girth to you, boy.
I got a little girth to me, boy. But the entire trip, every time a stewardess walked by, she hit me with her cart. Mm-hmm. Every time a person walked by, they bumped into me. And I heard so many people like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, nope, I get it. And the guy, I think he knew. Because he was like, at one point he said he was sorry. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I get it. I'm not blaming you for your size like that, whatever. But it was uncomfortable for me the entire time. So like to me, an aisle seat, I'd rather have the seat next to the window.
And unfortunately, that's also not an option.
I know it's not an option. So, or I will just take more space and be in a middle seat personally.
I'm a big fan of aisle is always my go-to. Window is obviously my secondary then, and then middle.
Yeah.
Just no one, no matter what size you are, you can be the size of Katrina Allen, and you don't generally love a middle seat because you're always then the risk is, of course, if there's large people next to you.
Sure.
So nobody loves a middle seat because you're literally doubling your chances of having being crunched,
correct,
being smushed. So that's where some of my decision making comes in. That's why sometimes,
and you do have even a little more space width-wise in those seats as well, a little bit.
Sometimes depends on the airline and the exact plane. Now, and I'm also the first to admit, out of just a nicety, I generally do not, even though I'm almost always one of the first 15 or 20 people on a plane for Southwest because I'm an A-list member. So you get on in the first 15, 20 people or so. I almost never take the exit rows. I generally will leave them, assuming a taller person would enjoy it more than I would.
Yeah.
I have the choice to, but I usually won't take it.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of being able to recline. But I generally won't take that because I usually feel as if, I know a taller person would appreciate this legroom more than I will. So there's a give and take there. Of course, there's pleasantries and there's things you can do to be nicer or more rude. But I think someone reclining, when given the option to recline, I don't think is necessarily rude.
I think it's okay, assuming you look around and you make sure it's someone behind you.
Oh, they're not tall enough, or they're too tall.
Yeah. Like if again, I think it's common courtesy. It's just,
now I know they do make, and I saw this. I heard about this years ago. They make a little wedge or a jam, like a little plastic jam.
I could never see doing that because
you'd rather kick them than stop them
than jam something into their seat. Yeah.
Here you go. My first Google search shows.
Yeah.
Now this is 2014. It says this $22 gadget could get you kicked off a flight.
Yeah. See,
and it's a knee defender, a pair of plastic wedges that lock in a seat in a position so it can't be reclined.
Yeah.
Is the knee defender legal? For the reasons described below, use of the knee defender does not violate FAA regulations unless an individual uses the device against the express instructions of the flight crew. So it looks like there's some. Now, just because it's not illegal via FAA doesn't mean that the flight attendants.
Correct.
Anyway, I knew that existed. I had heard of it. Here's a $42 version that's out on Amazon. That's funny. They call them knee defenders.
Yeah. And usually, if somebody, thankfully I've only had to do it a few times. Someone feels me bumping their seat because I make no problems doing it. Mm-hmm. Like I don't purposefully go and like hit it. If I can find a comfy way to sit, I will. But usually, and so if I have no one next to me, which is really nice, then I don't worry about it because I can kind of just turn my knees. But again, a lot of times if you're in the middle seat or a side seat, you've either the plane wall there or somebody else, you're stuck. if somebody turns around, I'm always like, sorry about that. I'm really tall, and when you recline,
they're like, good.
It's a pain in the ass. I'm like, it's uncomfortable. And most of the time, they're good. I've never had anybody not be good about it. Like, oh, sorry about that. So, but the other move that I always do now is, with Delta, I usually fly Comfort Plus if it's an option. I booked so late that it was not an option. So this time I just got whatever seat was available. With my carry-on, as I walk into the plane, I put it in the first available spot that's open. Whether it's Comfort Plus, whether it's if I'm in seat 40 or whatever, and this is in seat 15, I just walk up and put it in. There's no point in going back to where I am. I just almost the very first one, assuming it's not first class. They will mess with you.
They'll stop you.
They'll stop you from that. But if it's even Comfort Plus, they don't usually stop you. And normally the Comfort Plus board's before you. So I tend to kind of scan and see, well, are they already full? Like, are the people already sitting there? Because if they're already sitting there, there's probably no more bags that are going up there. So then I put my bag right up in there. This way, when I get off, when the plane lands and I need to walk, I get up, I walk. As I walk through, I grab my thing as I'm walking and head right out the door.
I can understand that move. I think protocol wise, I don't think that's really. I don't know if anyone would argue with that.
Yeah, nothing against that.
If they would have a problem with that, it does make sense to grab it. The only thing that can suck about that, for instance, would be someone who does, let's say, have a Comfort Plus, but we'll just say wasn't right there at walking in, or somehow is back further in the line.
Sure.
By the time they get to their seat or they're boarded, then the one that's logically above them is no longer available, and then somehow they have to put it back farther from where they are. Or they have to check it.
Well,
yeah, that could suck.
No different than if I have to go back and if anybody has to go back further and check it. Because if I get on and I'm seat 15B and I walk up to 15B and that area is already full, which in theory should be dedicated to me, one of them, but it's already been full because maybe I didn't board right away or someone else got in front of me, then I'm out of luck and for whatever reason, I need to go back further.
A lot of times, they're
too bad, so sad.
They're scaling them by what your boarding position is. So when you're in group, I'll just say 3 or 4 on a flight, there's a roll of the dice that you're not going to get it, and you're going to have to be the one that checks your bag. Like, that's by design.
Well, then the Comfort Plus person should have got in sooner.
That would be exactly.
On my final when I got to Charlotte and had to go from Charlotte to Atlanta to Milwaukee, they flat out said, they're like, listen, if you're in the last 2 boarding zones, we don't have room. We are probably going to force you to check your bag. So if you choose to check it now, you can board on main 1. So I walked up right away. I said, all right, I'll check my bag because I think I was in check-in main 2. There's still a 3 and a 4, I believe. But I was like,
they usually.
I was like, whatever, I'll check it, and then I can just pick it up at the airport.
Hey, good. I can get my wedge set quicker.
I can get my wedge out.
My anti-recliner wedge.
That's right.
Set quicker.
And so that's what I'd done, and then it was really fast because I didn't even have to wait at luggage check. It was already there when I walked down there, so it worked out perfect. But yeah,
good old beauty of travel and all the tricks that do and don't go along with it sometimes.
Scott Warren says, Johnny's like the honey badger. I just don't care. I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Damn.
I'm a badass, Terry.
Yes.
Clearly.
Just a badass. Gotta defend those knees, yeah.
That's right.
Something like that. Anything else? I was going to say anything else off of the socials or otherwise that was noteworthy. I mean, obviously, all the attention this weekend focused so much on these 2 incredible events. What I don't think we're going to see the end of the conversation, and I don't need to carry it on anymore. It's just the fact of, the whole 18 drama and call on it. That's going to continue. It eventually die.
Hopefully people listen to some of the podcasts she's been on to realize the situation that happened, the way it happened.
I think a lot of people postulated, speculated,
of course,
inserted their own, thought process. I think one of the more interesting, this is a tangent to it though. One of the more interesting responses that we've gotten out of it regardless of play and team and this and that and all the other takes that are there, how much I hate artificial OB, and it shouldn't be there. First of all, I don't want to say it's on every course. Clearly, it's not. But
that wouldn't have solved anything on 18.
Well, if there was an OB, if there was no OB string there, and she hit and then rolled into the water,
but
then she would have clearly hit somewhere in the ground, and they would have said she touched inbounds. She would have touched inbounds if there was no line to start
for that particular incident. But let's say that everything is in bounds. She hits the tree up above and falls in the water.
You could still be arguing.
You could still arguing. Oh, I clearly crossed over the shore right here, and it fell and it hit this branch, and it kind of ricocheted in, and it doesn't change the situation overall. It might change this particular incident,
sure,
but ultimately you're still going to have the same questionable calls in the future.
Yeah,
but I get it. Like, some people don't like artificial OB, and I've come to realize that it's an important part. I was never a hater of it, but I just you need it at some point. And honestly, I prefer a defined line when it comes to water. I prefer the artificial OB line because it's definitive. It doesn't change throughout the day. It doesn't move up and down day after day. Like one day, we got a ton of rain overnight, and now it's 3 inches higher or 1.5 inches higher. It is consistent.
Yeah, and there's no rocks. Just one of 100 examples you could say of that is you think of hole 16 at the the Dynamic Disc Open,
you owe $1
over at the Emporia Country Club. For many years, they didn't have a defined line, and then if there was a questionable call, everybody lost their mind and said, "Why isn't this defined?" Da da da. And then you put up a line there, and everyone says, "Why is the line there?"
It should be.
But anyway, the point is, there is a black and white, or in this case, just pure white line as to what defines the actual OB there. And I think that is a great scenario where that exactly needs to play out, like you're saying, because then is it on some rocks? Is it not? Is it, sticking out of the water? Is it not?
Is this muddy area considered water?
Exactly.
Or
so, I mean, that would be my instant rebuttals when the people say, I hate artificial OB, there needs to be no artificial OB. There's a perfect case in point. Hole 16 at the Emporia Country Club. Do you want OB on the front of that island or not? Do you want a string there? Because otherwise, we're just going to have an argument every single year as to whether or not a disc is in bounds. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. So there's no perfect solution, but that's one of the scenarios that definitely comes to mind, and one of the big conversations. And it's like, I think you're also missing the fact that the entire USDGC has for 25 years been predicated on artificial OB, and on ropes or rocks. They were like islands or hay bales.
First event
that pretty much
that like strung out so much rope.
Yeah, you may love or hate it, but just so you know, like the IDGC, the USDGC, essentially invented that at a highly prestigious event. So if you want to remove all the rope, I'm just letting you know that. And again, if you want to, fine. Just letting you know that's what the entire USDGC has been built upon. Carney says, I don't mind playing artificial OB. It looks bad at home on coverage. Really bad if it is just a rope in the middle of the grass, the same length or color. I mean, I think one of the biggest changes that they did last year that I do really, really enjoy is the fact that those ropes are now, a lot of the ropes throughout the course are inlaid in the ground or cut into the ground.
Yeah.
And then you have the rocks as a defining or as a landmark.
As a visual
landmark. I mean, rewind. Look 5 years ago. There was a rope that was run along the ground, thousands and thousands of feet of rope that runs along the ground. That was the official OB rope. And then they had another rope at about 18 inches up that runs above it that gives you kind of an actual visual. So there's 2 ropes on every single hole out there. Mm-hmm. And just last year, they really made that concerted effort and inlaid most of the rope, so a mower could go right over the top of them in most of the spots, and then had the longer grass in some scenarios, and then also had the rocks. I think it's a much more natural look that is more easily repeatable as well.
I agree. It looks
consistent.
Great.
Artificial OB is fine if done in a way that is easily defined and easily seen from the tee pad. Seen from who? From how long? On what hole? Like, let's just play pretend and say hole 9, the new hole 9 at Maple Hill has OB somewhere that's up and over the bend. Well, it does technically. Like, that's not seen from a tee pad. Like, I kind of understand where you're going with it, but how does it have to be seen or defined or known for sure from a tee? I think that's impossible to because of the way just topography.
It's great for it's great for viewers. I don't think it matters to the players as much because these players walk these courses. They see where the OB is for the most part. Obviously, within a specific area, like Holyn had said, she thought where it hit on that dirt was in bounds. And, no matter how you look at it, if it was that close, if it was an inch or so off, then, she still knew about where the OB line was. And I bet you she definitely couldn't see it. Otherwise, she probably would have known. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
A couple of quick shout outs. I also wanted to give Jay and Des celebrating 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
This during USDGC / Throw Pink. Congratulations to them. 28 years of marriage.
Hundreds of kids that came through that they were doing work with. I talked with Jay on, I believe, Saturday.
Yes.
That's great.
So congrats to them. And then also a couple others that I've hung out with that are always a good time at every event, anywhere in the country, wherever they might be. And then just all around great ambassadors for the sport. Brent and Nora got married this weekend. So congratulations. I wanted to shout them out. I got to play some golf with them a few months ago. But they got married this weekend. And one other thing that's a little more near and dear to my heart, and it's unfortunate it had to conflict this year, although it's in a transition year of going from some of our other TDs to some new TDs, but they still wanted to put on an event and make it happen. Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championship, sponsored by Dynamic Disc and Fly Green, that still went on this weekend. Of course, we had a lot of our biggest names in the sport were down at Throw Pink, but congratulations, Erica Weir, who I know has put effort and blood, sweat, and tears into the event and in the local scene, and Eddie and the rest of the crew, along with Kim Colvin, your TD, and Ben Fairley, and just all of these guys. And I don't know them all, but a lot of people have put a lot of work into continuing to see that move forward. So Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championship took place this weekend, and I look for that to grow and continue to thrive and probably get back to its insane attendance and overall love and support that it deserves. So I want to get those shout outs in there. Also reading off the board quickly, I don't think I could ever really go with Disc Blaster is a genius, especially when he himself is probably the one writing it. So no. Carney asks, I'll recap quickly. We had a Smashbox exclusive in the regular show. One Baby Macbeth arrived on 10/10, as in today. 7 pounds 10 ounces at 8:31 a.m. this morning.
That's such a little baby.
7 pounds 10 ounces, yeah, not big,
no,
not
it's
little.
It's an average size baby, probably.
Pablo Genesis Macbeth. Pablo Genesis Macbeth. That's a Smashbox exclusive, and a few other close friends and family knew, but I was given permission to make that a Smashbox exclusive announcement tonight. So congrats to the Macbeth family.
You know what
right.
Pablo Jr. is not going to get?
A
disc from tonight's Patreon giveaway?
I mean, we could make him eligible.
I don't think so.
No.
He's not a Patreon supporter yet.
Nope.
He will be, though.
He ain't winning.
He will be, though. I guarantee you. His first allowances are going to come to SmashBoxxTV. If you want to be like Pablo Jr., you can get on patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Want to be like or not want to be like?
Well,
You want to get a step ahead of him.
You want to get a step ahead of him. I mean,
we got giveaways, folks.
we have giveaways. For as little as $1 a month, you can be eligible for our weekly giveaway. We usually give away a disc or some fun little trinket or something. Maybe sometimes it's a piece of clothing, but mostly it's a disc. We almost always give away a disc. So tonight we have 133 people eligible for our giveaway. Terry Miller, not how should we give it away? We already know how we're going to give it away. What number should we draw to give away this? I sorted it by email address tonight.
I would say the only logical way is 25. I mean, 25th anniversary of the US. No. Okay. How about this? It was Holland's first throw pink victory and Kyle Klein's first USDGC victory. We'll add those up for 2. Second person.
I knew you were going to do that. All right. So our very first number that we're not going to give anything to is 115.
Ouch.
The winning number is 105. 105. Let's scroll down here. Like I said, I sorted it by email address tonight. 105 is Samuel Martin. Congratulations, Samuel Martin, at the $5 level. Much appreciated,
Is that the
Samuel.
Sam Martins that's out there on the board, or is that a different Sam? I think we have 2 of them.
We might have 2 Sams.
So, nonetheless, thank you so much, Samuel Martin. Yeah,
we'll get you. I'll send Terry your information, assuming it's your up-to-date email address and everything, and your address in Wichita.
Spoiler.
So
Wichita.
doxed him already.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sam from Wichita.
Who lives at 44782. It has to be both of us. LOL. Sam on the board says. No, I don't think so.
This is Pilot Sam.
But if this is the other Sam that I'm thinking of, I do want to throw it out there that yes, cold turkey registration is going to happen probably in the next week or 2. So if you're looking to play in my C tier immediately following the Thanksgiving holiday, that's when that happens. Cold turkey. It'll be taking place the Saturday and Sunday, split divisions. Saturday or Sunday is a better way to word that. I've got it all set up on Disc Golf Scene, but I'm going to get it released here soon. So if anybody wants to be part of that, look for it to come out soon. I should give a special pre-authorization to any Smashies and Patreon subs. Get you in there early. I don't know if it'll sell out this year. It'll probably be close. We'll have 72 spots on Saturday and 72 on Sunday for those who want to come play. And another quick shout out, a very near and dear friend to us and one of the original true Smashies in every sense, Gary to the O, who you hear us talk about all the time, who's done a million things, works now with the Disc Golf Network after being with us here at Smashbox. His wife, Caitlin, is celebrating a birthday today. So I wanted to say happy birthday to Caitlin. And
we didn't even congratulate Simon Lizotte on the announcement of his second child that he didn't get a chance to make.
Yeah, I don't think we were supposed to either. So, but yeah, congrats to Simon.
Kenny spilled the beans on that one already.
Yeah.
That was apparently a private conversation that Kenny didn't realize wasn't announced yet.
Yeah.
So
nonetheless, congrats to them as well. All right. I don't know if I have anything else in terms of what we need to worry about here.
All right.
So I think with that, we can close it out.
I think so.
Yeah, it's been a good night. I did get my hands on some of the new MVP discs, the Glow, Simon discs. I've got my hands on the battle packs from Discraft. I also got my hands on a few Castoplast discs that people were losing their mind over this weekend. I got my hands on some double stamped Discraft discs. I spread the love around. Picked up a few Innova discs, picked up a DD disc or 2. Spread some love around. So, but yeah, excited that the battle packs are coming out soon. I think I can release those soon, and those Simon Lizotte discs can be released soon, maybe tomorrow or the next day. So, yeah, look for those.
Should be fun.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Kinga, we see you coming in from Australia. We love you, buddy. I know he's got some stuff out on Ultra World and some other write-ups, so make sure you guys check those out. We love that guy. For Holland Hanley, who joined us in the regular show, congrats to her, congrats to Kyle Klein, congrats to everyone at Throw Pink, and especially one of our favorite Smashies, and Sarah Nicholson, who was your tournament director on record for this weekend, who knocked it out of the park, as you would expect, along with Jonathan Poole and the rest of the guys over at USDGC and Innova and US Disc Golf. For Johnny V, I'm the Disc Golf Guy. That's Podcast 475's After Show. We'll see you next week after the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships wraps up our season. We'll see you then. You step inside the Smash Box.